Welcome to the AV Experience, where we talk about everything, at least we think we talk about everything AV and home theater related. My name's Ryan, joined as always by Archaea, Jonathan, Bogus Odin, and or Bob. Bob, I got to know, I'm looking at this, and what is the origin of your name?
When I got an Xbox and first went on Xbox Live, I hit the random button a couple of times to find a cool name.
Oh my God. Really?
Yes.
You're one of those, like, I'm not creative at all. I can't come up with my own name, so I'm going to use random, and that name is going to follow me for the rest of my life.
Yep. And I liked it. I was really big into Norse mythology back then, still am. And yeah, like, okay, that sounds cool.
At least that kind of goes with you. I mean, if
no, if it had been something completely dumb, I wouldn't have kept that. Yes.
What is my son's is like wet paper bag or something,
which is kind of cool, actually.
I mean, kind of, or if it's something,
but it's only if you're really good.
Yeah, I haven't watched him play in a while, so he may be pretty good. I don't know. Jonathan, while we're on it, what's the origin story behind yours? I don't think I've ever asked you.
Yeah, mine's a scientific term. It means oldest, first. It's a microorganism that survives in hospital conditions, and I thought it was cool in biology class in high school, so it became.
You're saying your family and your household is inhospitable?
I attribute that actually to I've survived near-death experiences like 8 or 9 times, ridiculous amount of times. So that kind of like
sounds like it from some of your vacation stories.
Yeah,
those are lightweight compared to some of my older days stories.
We were driving down the mountain and the trailer was next to us and it was on fire. Mine is just from Space Ghost. I've had it since since I was in middle school when Alien vs. Predator first came out, and we decided to all name ourselves after Space Ghost characters. Nobody was Space Ghost, but we were all Space Ghost. I still have characters.
A Space Ghost Coast to Coast from Cartoon Network when that premiered. I picked it up at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah. Great show. Probably well over my head when I was that young, but it's fine. So, Jonathan, the first thing that I noticed before we get into the topic, by the way, the topic is talking about nits and projectors and displays. Like, what is too bright? Is there a too bright? And are people that say HDR should be 100 nits right, or are they going to the loony bin? But before we get into that, Jonathan, and the show we watched, Riddick, which we can talk about, your subwoofer configuration, they're not in the middle of your floor anymore.
So the boxes are done. The boxes were there, but I moved them into the back room to paint them into the shop area. So that's why the drivers were removed, because the boxes were there yesterday. The boxes turned out really nice. My father-in-law helped me. Like, I'm real proud of them. They look.
Does
really
your
nice.
Father-in-law have all of his fingers and hands?
We all have all of our digits.
All of you do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No trips to the hospital.
Really, really great week. Like, we redid the bathroom floor upstairs, in the upstairs bathroom, and I replaced a faucet today. Like, this has been a really productive week for me.
Did a subwoofer destroy those?
Neither. Not.
It helped him remove the tile.
I'm just imagining your father-in-law in the bathroom, like getting ready to rip up the floor, and he calls you on a walkie-talkie, "Hit it!" And here's Jonathan turning up the subwoofers to take out the floor. Oh man, Bob, you said when we were just jumping in here to bring back up wides, you have this innate tendency to rip apart your room a bunch of times and then put it back together and then rip it apart and put it back together. And
digitally anyway.
Oh, okay. It was digital. All right. That makes me feel a little bit better. But you said you maybe had something.
So no, when I was talking about it last week, I had the room dimensions wrong in Trinov between the two rooms. So when we were popping up the visualizer, I noticed that there was a disconnect between the way the two rooms were configured, and I thought that might have had something to do with the way the wides were being reassigned when they were deactivated. But it didn't. It went out. It turned out to be exactly the same.
Okay.
So
you didn't notice any difference?
No, I didn't notice any difference. And basically, what it comes down to is that if it's a track Atmos track that doesn't use wides, there's absolutely no difference because they're not turned on to begin with. If it's a Atmos track with mobile objects, there is, in my configuration, because my soundstage is set up very carefully, there is almost no difference. If you have to listen very carefully, because there's a couple of spots where the coverage isn't quite as good, just due to a slight asymmetry. But no, I mean, there's almost no discernible difference there. If it's a sound field or if it's a track where they're using that stationary object to activate the wide channels, then there is still a noticeable difference in the track, because it pulls objects or pieces of information that are normally bound to the front left and right channel and moves them to the sides. So that does change.
Here's what I think we need to do. I think we need to find a movie that's got a good mix and find the 1080p version of that and see if it has a different mix and see if we can tell the difference. Not fidelically, but placement wise. Like, can we tell the difference between having wides, not having wides? Like, what is that doing? Because I want to know. I think there's potentially a difference between having a mix that is mixed for wides and then just not having the physical speakers. But I want to compare having the movie with a mix that is meant for wides that we know uses them, and then also has like a 5.1 or like DTS like a normal DTS track or something like that.
I think
that's how we should do it.
I think depending upon your speaker configuration, if you have a nice cohesive like 360 sound field where you can, play the Atmos demo track and the bird flaps all the way around your head and it doesn't have gaps, it doesn't jump. Unless they have a dedicated wide bound object, I don't think you're going to hear a difference.
I'll tell you, you will hear a difference. You will hear a difference if you're outside of the MLP. I guarantee it. Even in your
right. And I tested that too. But the issue is that as I moved off axis more, I was sitting closer to the wide channel. But
it doesn't matter if you're closer, because you'll hear the other wide on the other side of the room that's further in that case.
Right, but it still images perfectly between the front and the side. So
not if I'm in my back row.
Right, but I have a single row.
Isn't there like some guy, one of the three of us, that just said we should test this?
Yeah.
I don't need to test this because I've done it so much. I watch movies in the back seats and I can hear the wides come to life all the time.
I'm just
because I'm not in the main listening position, and
right? Because you're off axis
between the speakers, because you're not in the right position. And now, because it's a point source, now you're hearing where it's coming from on the wide position.
But this is the same argument of having phantom center and not having a phantom center, and it's the same thing. You're anchoring the object to one particular speaker.
Absolutely,
yeah, I get that, but I want to see if there's a mixing difference. Like, are they doing something? Are they doing more? I think it'd be fun to figure out, like, is there a difference between an Atmos mix with the same movie and 5.1? And I don't know, maybe I'm just looking for something to do.
I feel like I've done this a lot, Ryan, and I can tell the difference between Atmos mix and 5.1s. I mean, I've done this. I've already done this. You guys go proceed. I'll follow along, but I've done this.
That's going to honestly come down more to activation of height channels.
Yeah. Logic upmix, Dolby surround upmix does not do the exact same thing as Atmos. There are some cases where, in my experience, it does better. Like the Dolby surround makes the heights more active than the actual Atmos track.
Yeah.
So
depending on what the upmixer does,
it totally depends on how it's mixed. It totally depends on how much like stuff the Dolby surround thinks needs to go up there because it's out of phase or whatever that it puts up there. Like you're not going to come to a universal answer is the problem. You're going to come to this track does it better in this configuration answer.
Because it's going to be room dependent. It's going to be what your seating configuration is, what your speaker configuration is, your distances between your speakers. And so some people, I mean, like, for example, Jonathan right there sitting in your back row, I think that's probably a good use case for them. But if you're in a single row sitting in the main seat, I don't think it's going to buy you much.
I mean, I was listening to Dolby Atmos music with my father-in-law last night from this chair right here on the end. There were many times I heard the wides light up because the wides are not in my room. They're actually quite a bit distant from the left LCR. Like they're not in a row. You're not going to get confused with it being in plane because it's sets out. Like the left channel's here. Do this. The left channel's behind the screen right on the corner. And then offset 3 or 4 foot and off to the side is the wide. So you're not going to get confused between where that source is coming from. And sitting in this seat, here, you absolutely can tell the wides coming on either side when they come on. Like
I
there's no
100%
question.
agree with that. And those tracks that are using the stationary Atmos objects to activate the wides, there is a massive difference in the way the front soundstage is presented. It's
Mhm.
easily to tell the difference between those tracks.
Mhm.
But when you go from that track that's mixed that specific way to a track that uses a 7-1 bed layer or a 7-channel bed layer with mobile objects in it, they don't bind as specific in space. So the fact that that wide channel is there makes a lot less difference because the object pans through it. It's not stationary at the wide channel.
Mhm.
So I've got one that I think would actually that most people I don't think are thinking about. Not this. This was just an interesting comment. And that we're all looking for potentially. Potentially, my wife probably won't appreciate that, but anyway, one thing that you will get a benefit from is if you're running something like Dirac Art, having
Mhm.
the extra speaker there to be able to provide support
Absolutely.
in the space, you're getting more um, SPL and power handling capability. So that's something that you run into with something like Art is you can actually run a speaker out of gas
Right.
because you're doing support and output simultaneously. So you're emitting and you're supporting. And if you can add more speakers to be able to do this, it's like adding more subs when you start getting into things like Art. When they're able to support each other, from what I've experienced, is just a cumulative benefit.
I think
Now,
there's a huge benefit to wides if they implement them as a channel spec.
yeah.
Like if they move soundtrack and they move certain things out of the front
Okay.
soundstage
All right.
into wide channels, they're going to
Yeah.
be great. But in their current implementation, they're not utilized for most content.
In a lot of stuff. Yeah. Okay. We're on the same page then. I thought initially you were saying that in all content, if you're sitting in the reference seating position, that you can't tell. And it's really only when you get into off
Same thing on
axis.
that though. I mean, that'll just become more like a Phantom Center type thing. But yes, I think there's an advantage to pulling that information out of the main soundstage if it's meant to be there. But then you get into these weird Atmos mixes where things are going where they're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
I listened to I can't even remember Sweet Home Alabama just because I was going through random Atmos tracks, and that one bothered me really badly because the guitars in that are behind you.
Why do they do that?
I have no idea, and it sounds so wrong.
Why do they do that? That's
I'm
so
gonna have to listen to
weird.
that one again. That's on Apple Music or which
I
source?
was on Amazon Music because I don't have Apple.
Jonathan's probably up there saying,
That's in
one
one
of
of
my
my
favorite
playlists.
tracks.
I like that one. I don't remember the guitars being
See?
behind me, but I've run into that before where there's weird things happening behind you, and they've masked
Yeah,
it that way.
when I first started doing this, I had a massive list of Atmos tracks that I had liked or didn't like. And there were ones where like you go through and the drum kit was split up, and like the kick drum would be coming from the ceiling. And you'd
Mhm.
have the hi hat on like one wall, and I'm not sitting in the drum kit listening to music. There's no reason
It's
for this to be like this.
distracting.
It is.
Mhm.
It's distracting. And the problem with things that are distracting, people I don't think give this enough thought. The problem with things that are distracting is it breaks your immersion. I
Mhm.
want to be watching something or listening something and forget I am in a room. I want it to just fall away. When I'm watching something, I want to be like it's like you're reading a book and you hit that point where you stop realizing that you're flipping pages and you're just going through the story. It's that happens to me in movies and the room falls away.
Mhm.
And if you get these things like with music and it's distracting, it just ruins that immersive experience. And
I've had
I
that problem
hate it.
with a lot of the stationary Atmos tracks or the stationary object tracks is when they pull those instrument tracks into the wides.
Mhm.
It takes all that energy out of the front soundstage, and the front soundstage almost sounds like dead and overly quiet. And you get more energy coming from the sides, and it's just not how you would envision yourself listening to music. You don't watch a band play like that.
Right. Yeah. I think yeah, just
But
ruins some stuff.
there's other mixes that where they do creative things with synth sounds. It works great with pop, and they're just awesome. Like
There
it
are
is so
certain
much
things
fun to listen to.
that it works really, really well in, but
Yeah.
sometimes it can be very, very distracting. Okay. Riddick. What did you guys think? Jonathan, did you watch it? Did you watch Doc? We can't hear you.
Yep.
You could tell from my expression that I didn't watch it. No, I have my in-laws here, so no, my time down here has been limited.
They could have watched it.
We listen to music. We watched some Planet Earth. Like, we're doing stuff as a family. We watched. Not that it's on topic. We watched Batteries Not Included, and that's held up well. I enjoyed
Love that movie. It's a great movie.
So you didn't watch Dark Fury. You didn't watch Dark Fury. You didn't watch Chronicles. You didn't watch
Riddick. Been here
Riddick.
since December 31st. They're leaving next Tuesday. They're sleeping in the room right above here. I can't do late night things. Like, it is what it is.
He's no longer part of the stream.
So rude.
Okay, so Bob and I will talk about this one.
Yep.
You've seen the movie, Jonathan, I'm assuming. Have you seen Riddick?
Yes. Isn't it kind of a little more racy than the other ones as far as like sexual innuendos?
This one's darker. This one goes back more towards Pitch Black. I think it kind of felt like Pitch Black in some points.
More explicit.
Yes, yeah. There was some explicitness in this one.
I kind of remember that. I think I saw it when it was first released, and I haven't seen it.
It would be the least kid friendly of them so far.
This movie was not kid friendly at all. I don't know what you're.
Yes.
What'd you think? Which version did you watch?
Peacock. I watched Peacock. So I was trying to buy the complete Blu-ray collection because the 4K one's too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I had ordered it on Amazon. It was on sale for like $12 or something like that. I was going to get them. And with all the snow and everything, my shipment date kept getting pushed back. And now it's like maybe coming on the 21st, maybe. So I'm probably just going to cancel it. It was streaming on Peacock. Wild Robot's going to be coming out on Peacock in 2 weeks. My kids really want to watch that. So I'm just going to watch their catalog for a month and see what's on there.
Wild Robot's so good.
I really want to watch it, but we're almost done with the book. So I got to wait till that's
so
finished.
Good. Jonathan, have you seen it?
I have, and I liked it.
So good.
It has such a high score. It's sort of surprising that it's that high, though, is it not? I think it was like when I looked, it was like in the high 90s, both user and critic, if I remember right.
I think that a big part of that is because it's such a wide audience that can appreciate that movie.
Yeah,
and I think it's really well done, both visually and acoustically. I mean, it's just really, really well done. I like it, and the emotion that it conveys. It's really good.
We'll have to wait till that one for 2 weeks to talk about.
I'll watch it again.
Yeah,
I'll watch it again. Absolutely. But let's talk about Riddick.
All right.
What was your experience with streaming?
Honestly, I've been having a bunch of problems with decreased bitrate on Disney Plus recently, especially on their newer content. Skeleton Crew's been really bad for that, but I had no issues with Peacock at this particular time. I know there's been some reported issues with big like sporting events like everyone else has, but it was fine. The picture quality was great. The audio was pretty good. It worked well for me. I didn't really have any complaints. I don't have another copy of a disc to compare it to. It was visually much more detailed than the DVD versions of the other movies I watched. So
you're saying that streaming is better than SD?
It was an SD though. It was not an HDR.
Well, but it was in high def.
It was in high definition. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was in 1080 or 4K because it doesn't tell you. So, and the Xbox automatically upscales everything. So I couldn't tell from the stream. The app doesn't have some of the features that the other ones with, at least I think frame rate matching and resolution matching. So it was just an SDR as far as all I knew. But I think it looked great. I did play around with some brightness during the movie. So we can talk about that later. Honestly, I thought it was really slow to start off with and a lot of it unnecessary. The whole like making yourself a
summary really slow to start and a whole
like the whole like 10 minutes of making himself immune to iocane powder in order to, just in case he's going to get poisoned kind of thing. Like he climbs a mountain at the end of the movie. Why couldn't he just go over the mountain? Why did he have to go up the one set of stairs that was guarded by like the one demon thing or the scorpion creature?
Yeah.
There was no reason for that whole kind of opening season or a scene.
And how did he find out that the little ones were venomous?
The dog got bit, I think, in the beginning, or one of those dogs got bit when they were by the lake, when they were chasing him towards the stairs.
They got. Oh yeah, one of the big ones stabbed
one of
him.
the
But how
big
did he
ones.
know the little ones were more venomous?
Probably just like everything else, because that's a common thing across most insects and creatures.
I guess maybe
all the little ones don't have as good a control over their venom glands, so
maybe
most little things are more toxic than bigger ones.
Yeah, that's possible. It
They
did
went-
start kind of slow.
I didn't like the way that they upped the superpower stuff of Riddick this time around. He's been getting more like superhuman as the movies go on, between like being able to just set his own leg and then be walking on it an hour later, I guess. The Rambo style healing where he jabbed the rock in his chest to close a gaping blood wound.
He's the descendant of Rambo.
Right. It kind of got to that point where like you went from, he was just kind of a badass guy in the first one that was a little bit better than normal, came from a different planet maybe, and then he got more superpowers and then has more superpowers.
But it did explain kind of where.
Right. No, I'm okay with that part. I'm okay with that part, especially after Chronicles, where you had all the space magic stuff. But I thought it was fine. I think there was too much emphasis on it.
I would call it a fun movie.
Yeah,
it was fun. I enjoyed it.
I think my biggest complaint about it was honestly the way that they've kind of turned the goggles into like I don't even know, like putting on your sunglasses to act cool kind of thing. Because in the first one, like he was blind out in the light and couldn't see anything when he was outside in bright light. When like lights got shine in his face, he got disoriented. He spent half this time out in the sun just wandering around with his goggles off. You're right.
Did he have his eyes redone? Did they talk about that? Because he paid for his eyes the first one.
Well, so there was a video game about this, and that's kind of, I think, something they said where he had always had that ability, but the surgery or whatever that he had in that prison just kind of activated his innate ability that was already there. So
yeah, because then they talked about in this movie that what's his name, the necromancer met one of the guys that had the same eyes. So
yeah, it's like a Furian.
It was just kind of going back to the Furian,
right,
biology, if you will. The movie looked good for what it was. I mean, it's not a newer movie; it's almost 15 years old. It sounded good.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't like a movie that I'll actively seek out to watch. It was fun watching it once every decade.
Right.
I don't regret my time watching it.
I like Chronicles better. That is my
Chronicles has a better story. I like the somatic parts of Riddick more, but that's probably because the movie is almost 10 years newer than Chronicles. Chronicles had a much better story, and it was just a much better. The speed of the movie was a lot better.
Right.
Everything about the movie was better. Chronicles is just better, but this movie was fun. I enjoyed it. I don't have any regrets watching it. It was good. What was your favorite part of the movie?
Bob's like, I didn't really have a favorite part.
My favorite part was when it ended.
It was over.
I think it would be when the big eye scanner thing reactivated inside, and then you saw the whole swarm of creatures coming in the storm with it.
Yeah, I wish they would have done how Riddick saw them at the very beginning, where you saw them all way out at a distance and it gave you the scale, instead of how they did it with the what was Cyclops
coming through the wall. Yeah,
when the Cyclops, and it was just like here's one, and it just didn't give you the scale that you saw when Riddick saw it with his dog.
Right.
I liked that. That was probably my favorite scene when Riddick saw them. It took me back to Pitch Black. Yes. I like Pitch Black, and it felt like a homage back to what Pitch Black was. I mean, those whole monsters kind of were.
Right. And it was kind of a similar to like a remake thing. Like, I mean, like go back and look at like the first couple Evil Dead movies. Yeah. They're the same kind of way where the first one was an attempt. It wasn't nearly as polished as it should have been. And then the other one was kind of a better version of the first one. This was kind of a better version of Pitch Black.
Do you think that because of how this one ended, that the new one that they're doing is going to pick up where this one left off?
They're somewhere probably directly related to Furia.
Do you think they're just going to skip the whole part where he goes to find the necromonger?
I don't know, because I mean, didn't in
How did yours end? I watched the director's cut. How did yours end?
they were each in their ships and left?
That's where it ended?
I think so.
Oh man. Okay. So the director's cut goes on for a little bit more. The director's cut, they go back to, he gets back on the necromonger ships.
Oh no, I did not get any of
And
that.
he kills the guy that tried to kill him. Not the main guy. What's his name? The bigger actor, Boggs or whatever the hell his name is. That's the guy he kills with the scars all over his face. So he stabs him in the back. He's dead. And then the movie ends when he's looking out the portal of the ship into the underverse. So it's like he's going to chase that guy back into the underverse, is where this movie where Riddick ended. I had none of that in the theatrical release that was on Peacock. It was, I don't think I'd ever seen that before. That was the first time I'd seen that. And it made, this time watching this movie, it made way more sense. Okay. Like, when he first ended up on the planet, did it keep going back to explain how he got there? Yes. Okay. So this one just tied up him going back, and yeah, they had the fight on the cliff with the guy who basically blew the cliff down, and he goes back at the very end to kill him. Okay. I did not get that part. Yep. So that was I'd never seen that before, and I liked how it ended. Like, that was a great ending, and you had an idea of where it was going. He was chasing this guy. Didn't need another movie, though. I kind of wonder if that's where it's going to end up. So I liked it. It was good. I enjoyed the sound. There was some great surround moments there. It was good. All right, Jonathan, I'm going to let you pick the next movie. What do you think it should be?
I don't know. Do I have anything good that's on my desk here new?
Chat, feel free to mention some stuff.
Give me towards the end of the podcast and I'll come up with something.
Godzilla.
I watched Godzilla versus Kong this week too.
You'd never seen it?
Other than the demo clip that I've seen at your house, like every time I'm over there. No.
It's a decent flick. It's not terrible.
Again, I'm going to bring up later in the brightness.
It's not a terrible movie.
I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really good movie.
Jonathan hates it. Everything about Godzilla.
I haven't seen it. I'm not inclined to.
No, Godzilla versus Kong is good.
What was the last Godzilla you saw?
It was like Godzilla versus T-Rex or whatever that came out.
That's the last Godzilla you saw?
And only because my friend was begging me to watch it in my theater, and I hated it.
Did you watch -1?
No.
Oh, that's a great movie.
What about Shin?
No.
What about the 2014 Godzilla?
I watched some of the old goofy stuff from the 1950s and 60s.
No, this isn't like that.
Those are terrible.
I've watched Godzilla versus Kong is 1990 something with like Inspector Gadget guy.
No, that makes Godzilla look like a T-Rex.
They're all horrible. I haven't seen.
No. This is good. This is like watching Pacific Rim. Same kind of like.
But he doesn't like Pacific Rim.
I hate Pacific Rim.
Which we might have to watch that too. Pacific Rim's a great movie.
It is.
I love Pacific Rim.
I'm going to get rid of him again. And he's not coming back.
Godzilla versus Kong is like that same feeling as Pacific Rim. It's a giant robot kind of, well, not giant robot, but well, I guess technically yes, but fighting kind of big creature movie with a plot of, focusing around them.
I went back and watched Pacific Rim because I hadn't watched it in the new theater.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept saying during the opening scenes, like, oh my God, like, this is what they did with Atmos in that movie is phenomenal. Like, it is a phenomenal. I wouldn't say it's a great movie. It is a great time. I don't think it is
giant robot movies that was ever made.
Yes, but it is not the same quality of movie as like Blade Runner or something.
Okay, fine.
That movie to me is worthy of a thread that says movies that sound great that aren't worth watching, because there's just not enough time in life to watch a crappy movie for good audio. There's just not enough time in life.
It's a lot better than. Maybe we should watch Robot Jocks just so you can appreciate Pacific Rim more.
I never even heard of that one.
Oh, you've not seen Robot Jocks?
What's the one with
I watched that in the theater like probably
what's the
10
guy-
times when I was a kid.
what's the one with the Wolverine where he's building the giant robots that fight each other?
Oh, that's a Real Steel. That's a great movie too.
That's a fun movie. But Jonathan's probably like, I'm above all of these movies. I don't watch them
I
unless
have
it's a
to have
cinematic
those
masterpiece.
Explosions and like people yelling at the top of their lungs all the time for no reason, which was Pacific Rim. Every character was yelling the entire movie like it was junior high PE class.
Yes, and that's what
couldn't
made it
take-
great.
It's
Look at me. It's like the
watching
embodiment
anime.
of me.
You don't watch enough anime.
Actually, some of the best stuff I watched this last year was anime.
That's 75% screaming.
No, it's not. Not the stuff I was watching.
You probably thought Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball was terrible.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z was all screaming.
You've never.
I know what I was. No, there was what's it called? Tim Miller, my buddy, turned me on to it. It's called is it Blue Origin or something like that? This last year I watched. It was really good. It's a Netflix anime about a samurai warrior type thing, a vengeance story. Let me look that one up.
There's some great anime.
Arcane is awesome, although I'm not sure that strictly classifies as anime. It's animated. It's very good.
I wouldn't
on
say it's
Netflix as
anime.
well.
I haven't
All
seen
right,
that one.
we're going to come back to you at the very end of the stream, and I want to know what you want to watch. Chad is saying Chucky is a good recommendation.
There's a couple in there that I don't know if are appropriate.
Chris 314 Carpenter says Barbie.
Blue Eye Samurai. That's the one I'm thinking.
Yeah, I've
of.
seen Blue Eye Samurai.
That one's very adult too, but I really enjoyed it. And that's anime. Well, depends on what you say because it was actually made in France, but it's anime style.
No, it's anime. It's
Did you
anime.
ever watch The Big O? There was another big giant steampunk robot show.
The Big
It's
O.
been a while.
The Big O. That was great. It was on the Cartoon Network around the same time as Cowboy Bebop.
What's the one that's currently running on Prime or Netflix that's going back and doing all the video games? Chad will know. I need to go watch that. The first episode they did was on Armored Core.
Oh, that's on Netflix as well, isn't it?
I don't remember what it's called though,
I think I know what you're talking about.
but it's supposed to be really good.
headline for it.
I need to
Haven't
go
seen
back
that
and
one.
watch that.
Yeah.
So Jonathan, we'll come back to you for the end of the stream on what we should watch next, and it's got to be some type of large animal or robot beat 'em up. Has to be.
Terrible.
Has to be.
I'm gonna culture you guys. We're gonna watch some sort of like historical period drama with some good acting and so forth.
Miles says,
Downfall,
over-
for instance. Have you seen Downfall? Excellent. Excellent.
Is that like Moonfall?
No, it's a latent in the World War II story that from Hitler's perspective. It's very
So
interesting.
Overlord.
I haven't watched Overlord.
Oh my gosh. You haven't watched Overlord.
I don't think I've seen that either.
Do not watch it with your kids. I'm not going to tell you anything else because it is best seen not knowing anything about what you're going into. It is
Well,
World
that'd
War
be-
II.
I thought that was. I didn't know it was World War II.
It is
I
World
mean,
War
I
II.
know that mission was called that.
It
but I
has
don't
one
know
of the
how it-
best opening demo scenes for subs out of anything.
Ooh, you've piqued my interest.
Yes, you need to go watch it, but you need to watch the. Okay, that's it. We're doing Overlord. That's it. Overlord's this week's movie because
I haven't
these
seen it.
guys haven't seen it, and we need to watch it. And if you have not seen it, do not go into it having your sub set at reference. Ease into it. Watch the opening scene or the. You'll know when it gets started, and then make sure that you're good, and then go back and you can turn things up because I don't want anything to blow up.
It looks like it's a bunch of places, so it should be watchable.
It's a phenomenal demo, and I'm not going to tell you anything else aside that it is World War II.
Chat seems to agree with you that that's a good show or a good.
It is
demo.
a great movie. Great movie. Secret Level, Miles. That's what it is with all the animations, or whatever it is. So excited about that. But I'm excited to watch Overlord again because I haven't watched the whole movie in the Mad VR Experience Center.
Oh no, it's on Tubi.
Bob, you're welcome to come over and watch it here
I might have to.
because I don't want you to miss out on this at least the opening sequence.
He's got it on VHS. It's all right.
Yeah. I bet I
I
can
can find a DVD of it at the library.
I'm gonna get out the tape spools.
That's the problem. Is the our local library system only does DVDs. They
What?
don't have 4K movies.
Is that just because they're not getting donated?
I don't know. It was kind of a downer when I found that out, but they don't do 4K content.
Yeah, that is kind of sad.
Is Overlord like a fictional story, or is it based on a true story? I mean, I know Operation Overlord.
I'm not going to tell you anything.
Okay.
It is. This movie is best. No, it's best not knowing anything.
All right.
Not going to tell you anything about it. You may hate it. You may love it. Do not watch it with your kids. Yeah. Okay. Topic for today is really brightness when it comes to displays. And the title of it is 200 or 300 nits too much? Originally, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of people, especially when HDR has come out or first came out, and even now, a lot of calibrators have said, and I'm not saying they do now, I'm saying in the past, some of them do now, say that all you need is 100 nits for HDR content in residential. And I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Wasn't the old spec for SDR something like, what is it, 40 or 60 nits or something? It was crazy low for that.
I couldn't tell you.
A lot of people targeted 80 nits, I think, as far as SDR on their projectors for a long time and at home.
I can tell you that I just watched Riddick in SDR at 300 nits.
I watched as many nits as I had.
Yeah.
It was not 300.
So what is your guys' feeling on when HDR first came out? Really, whenever you started getting into this on how bright things should be, take us through that time frame and then where you are now and what your feeling is on it.
Jonathan, you want to go first?
Sure. I've never been a huge fan of HDR. It's always been kind of a bandage type situation with projectors to this point. Like, you can sometimes get it to look as good as SDR. A lot of times not. Maybe it's lateral at this point where it's like, whether it's HDR or SDR, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. You just got to match it because that makes your color space better and it makes everything like match the source a little bit better. For projector world, it's still not great. I feel like in the last 2 years, speaking to the topic, my desire to have a brighter image from a projector has really changed. Even like when I got the LS12000, I thought this is plenty bright. It's nice image because I didn't have much of a comparison to reference it to. In that span now, I've gotten an OLED monitor that's like 800 nits. I've been to Ryan's house, which is like stupid bright.
800 nits.
800 nits on a projector. If you put up the laser 100%. Yeah, I mean, like, in the last 2 years, the world has kind of changed for me. And now the LS12000, even though like by the numbers, it hasn't really lost brightness. I've only got like 800 hours on it. It doesn't seem as bright as displays I'm more often using, like this OLED that's in front of me, so that's a little disappointing.
Do you think part of it is that you're acclimating to it? Like
I
when
think
you first started,
brighter images. Because when I first started at my desk, I thought this is really bright, like it's too bright. And then like slowly you're like, I'm not going to turn it down. I'm just going to enjoy it. It's nice to have a bright display. And then slowly you're like, man, I like that.
Now you try and turn it down or forget that auto dimming and stuff's on it. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What is happening? Why is it broken? Why is it so dim?
Yeah.
So you're saying that you started out, and I think this is a technological limitation, right? When displays were coming out and way back, they weren't as bright as they are now. And now we've gotten to a point where they've gotten progressively brighter. And you're saying that as they've gotten brighter and as you've acclimated to them, you've seemed to have decided that you like a brighter image.
It's kind of like a frog in a boiling pot, as they say. And I think it's
you don't know when you're ready to get out until it's too late.
Yeah. So here's another interesting thing. 2 of my friends, my brother actually, and a friend, so 2 people I know, recently got OLEDs, their first OLEDs as a computer display. And I'm playing games with them. I regularly play games with them. They're like, they're just on the other end of the mic just saying, holy crud, this is bright. It's so bright, it's hurting my eyes. I'm like, you'll just keep with it. It's awesome. You'll get used to it. And you won't want to like leave that because you're watching HDR and it's like, it's just so impressive with
Mhm.
that. So like it rewinds me a couple years to when I got the OLED, and I remember thinking the same thing. Like, this is too bright. And then you play like Cyberpunk 2077 with HDR, and it's just drop dead gorgeous, like eye candy. And you think, all right, I get the appeal. And then you're used to it, and you don't want to go back to a regular display anymore. So yeah.
So A Leon says Best Buy display mode was correct the whole time. I kind of disagree, but I only disagree because torch mode isn't calibrated. But if you could give me torch mode and it was calibrated, I'd 100% agree with you. Absolutely.
I think there's something
100%.
not said to be not be using 100% of your available output from day one.
TVs, I don't really care because they're easily replaced. Like it's
Right.
something that I can move around quite easily, and they're not nearly as expensive as a projector. A projector, maybe, but still, I look at it as you're only on this earth for a finite period of time. Why am I limiting something when it may cost me a few percentage points? I'd rather have all the brightness.
Yeah.
But I'm not running the Griffin at full bright. I'd be blind. I say that, and then next year it's gonna be like Ryan's acclimated to 800 nits, and that's all he watches. But Bob, what is your feeling on it? You're Jonathan's. What's your feeling?
I've been ruined heavily by you guys, I think, in more ways than one. Whether it be subwoofers or brightness, it's kind of one of those things where if you see it once or twice, you don't. It's like an outlier in your experience, but the more time you spend around it, the more you crave it, and the more you really get used to it. So, I was using when I had my my 5040. I started off watching that on a 100 the retractable 110 inch. It's a Greyhawk G4 screen. And so it's a positive gain screen, but I watched that at mid laser or at mid lamp because I didn't want the higher fan noise on over my head. But then as that lamp started to dim, I mean, I wanted more brightness. I was missing it, and the lamp went back up. When I got the NZ8, did the same thing. There was a couple issues there. When I first got the NZ8, there was so much laser speckle on that ALR screen that it was unwatchable at high laser and not really watchable at mid. I watched it at low a lot. And that's why I replaced screens. Once I replaced screens, I had just kind of gotten used to that low brightness level. And so I stuck around. I did most of my gaming at basically low. Back when
I remember you talking about that.
Back when they still did the only the 3 tiers of power before they added the numeric slider. So I gamed it low just because I'm like, it doesn't waste as much energy, it doesn't waste as much life on my my laser. And honestly, for long term, kind of just sitting there staring at a screen, low blinking, I kind of like it at a lower brightness. I don't want it as bright for long term gaming.
Yeah, I could see that.
For movies, I'd always watch it mid laser. And just kind of called it good. It was a little quieter. Ryan was running that the your NZ9 at high on your screen, and you were getting a lot brighter. And every time I come over and see that, and it was definitely brighter. It was, but you weren't not being used to it. It was a close picture, but I wasn't at the point where I was wanting it.
It's like walking outside when you're
Right.
inside on a really bright day and your eyes haven't acclimated to that.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it, or you're out in it for a little bit, and your eyes get a chance to acclimate to it, and your pupils adjust, and then you're able to work with it.
The big demo content or clip that you've been doing on the Christie has been that scene from Godzilla -1 or Godzilla versus Kong. So I watched that this week and specifically waited for that scene to come up because I'm like, all right, I'm on high. I think I might have had the iris slightly closed because I think I usually leave it at like -3 or 4. I think that's where I last ran AutoCal at. And so it's just kind of where it had been sitting at. And I got done watching that scene. The first time the breath weapon swept across the screen, it went bright. I mean, it flashed. It was bright, but it wasn't like the same experience as watching at your place where you kind of close your eyes and it's like, oh my God, that's bright. Like,
which experience do you think is what they were trying to do?
I think it's more of, well,
Do you think they were actually trying to do that, or do you think it was
with
just
the full, because it's a full field white screen, I think that's what they were trying to do. I think they were going for a visual impact of that, of like, here's how intense this weapon is.
I mean, I can go back and look at the mastering level for that particular area and see what the metadata says. Not that the metadata is necessarily correct, but I can look at it.
I like that aspect of it. And I don't know if it's a color volume issue or just a brightness issue. The neons didn't have nearly the same intensity, because I know I think the JVCs are light on red anyway. But it didn't have the same intensity as the Christie, but there's a slight difference in price. The experience was really good. I loved the movie. I liked it. Definitely brighter. I watched that at a lower brightness and a higher brightness, and it was really lacking something at lower power. And so I think I can get, I don't know, what am I, probably 150, 175 nits, I think is the most I can get. But that's on Mr. Meter, who is not, I think, as accurate anymore.
Dr. Meter needs to go back for his doctorate.
Yeah.
He was a little off when we compared him to the Spectro, and to compare him not only to the Spectro, but also to my light meter. And my light meter and the Spectro are pretty close. They're within 5%.
Right.
And you were off by like
a lot.
20%.
I think like 40 on the old battery, and then like 20.
Well, that was the old batteries. You and I, when we measured the first time, we're like, that doesn't seem right at all. It was double.
Crazy off. I was like 40% higher than what you were measuring. I'm like, wait,
double.
Yeah, and I pulled the battery out and changed it, and then it dropped to, I think, what I was measuring 1800, and you were at 1200 or something like that.
Yeah,
or so
something like that. But my light meter was also pretty close. So I knew that the Spectro and the light meter were within the ballpark because we were verifying them. So my opinion on this whole thing with brightness, and chat, I do want to hear you guys weighing in on this. I've seen some comments come through. My opinion on this and what we think is appropriate and what calibrators say is how things should be is simply based on what the capability of the equipment is at the time. I find that when they were saying that HDR needs to be this, that's really what HDR projectors were only capable of at that given time. Even when you compare them to theatrical projectors in AMC or any of the other big commercial cinemas, they're well below even 100 nits.
Yeah, a lot of not capable of very much either.
Way lower. If you go to Dolby Vision, right? Dolby Vision, historically, using the Eclipse, has been around 100 nits. Now, and this is the direction that CD is taking with the recommended practice, the new Eclipse in Dolby Vision, 300 nits.
Right.
So we're getting and moving towards, I think, where HDR needs to be, because we're getting access to a lot of this brightness. We're getting access to a lot of these things that we haven't historically had, and it's allowing HDR, I think, to do what it's needed to do with that added brightness.
Correct. The spectral highlights are great, and that's the thing that really comes out. Now, when you watch certain SDR content, it can definitely be too bright. Especially, older content, older animated content is really bad. If you watch Pitch Black was a little bit
pretty bright.
It was pretty bright. But you go watch old animated stuff, like the old cartoon Grinch, or like Frosty the Snowman, or the Care Bears from like the 70s and 80s. That stuff, because there's so much just ambient light and no darkness on the screen, they're overwhelming to watch it at high intensity. Because just the average luminance across the screen is too high. So they're not fun to watch at high bright levels.
I would agree with that. Okay. TVs. I see this a lot. I see people talking about how my TV can do 10,000 nits or can do these absurd nit numbers. And I think it's important to point out that what we're talking about with these projector nit levels, like when I'm talking about 300 nits or 800 nits, that is full white field, 100% full on, like no 1%, 2%, 10% window. That is all the way open. So if we go to ratings, and we look
on a
at
160-inch diagonal screen and not a
It's
not
really
a 77-inch.
it's really bright. But if we go to ratings and we're looking at something like what's the TCL TV that's stupid bright? Anybody know the model of that? It's like the
Not off the top of
110
my
or
head.
something, 110 inch. Chat, what is it? You guys know. You're smarter than us.
Rewind a second there, Ryan. When you're talking about like full on brightness, a lot of those
Mhm.
TVs when they're talking like 10,000 nits, it's just in a small.
I know, that's my
That's
point.
what he just said.
That's my point.
That's why I wasn't following you. So I'm just making sure.
No, that's my point. Absolutely. Because I want to make sure that people understand that when they see 10,000 nits and we're talking about 300 nits or 800 nits or 100 nits, when we're talking about projectors, well, yes, you can measure at X window. A lot of times we're talking about full 100% window. So in order to make this an apples to apples comparison, I'm going to look up the UX. It's the one chat says it's the UX 110. So let's look this up and let's see what. I didn't find anything. 110.
But I think this is kind of the same thing as completing it's flushing out your experience. It's like the tactile layer, it's the infrasonic base, it's everything that completes that same auditory and tactile sensation, but on a visual side. If you don't have that extra edge on it, you're still going to really enjoy your picture. Like you're not going to have a bad experience. You don't need this to enjoy it, but having that extra edge on the visual side of things really brings kind of the visual aspect of your experience together.
Yeah. So now I'm looking at it. So I'm not looking at the 110. I just went to an OLED. I went to the G4 as an example.
1,000 nits or something like that.
So the G4 at a 2% window, this is where they're getting these measurements. 2% peak and sustain, they're close enough, is 1,400 nits.
Right.
When you start getting into 100% window, which is what we're comparing to, 220 nits is what it's capable of.
It drops that far.
It does.
On the LG?
Yep. This is the G4.
Wow.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
I would have thought maybe the older ones did, but I thought that G4 is supposed to be.
It's actually this way for most TVs. It is a significant difference. And a big part of that is because of heat.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how thin the panel
handling
is.
Yeah.
They can't do all of the sustained brightness. I'm trying to find the big TVs.
I wonder if their power supplies are even strong enough to do that.
I don't know. But it's not. I really just want to point this out because you see all of these really big numbers, and it's usually not the case. I mean, it is, but it's not.
We're going to get back at the rate we're going. We're going to get back into the room where your TVs are heating the room again.
Yeah,
I remember running
all over again.
Right, my plasma TV. Every time I ran that, and you walk by the screen, I mean, you could feel the warmth rating off that thing and coming off the back.
Chat, is there a ratings review for this? For any of these big TVs that have these absurd ratings? Can you guys find any? I'm on ratings and I can't find anything, but I don't want to just be head down in the rating site while we should be talking. So especially and the reason I really want to talk about this is because there's a lot of talk about whenever CES comes up, whenever CEDIA happens or ISE, and you have these big trade shows and the new TVs come out and they're talking about how, they can do 17,000 nits and it can do this and it can do that. And it's super cool when it does that, but it's not doing that at 100% window. So not that you're going to really have full bright 100% window, but for what we're talking about with those Godzilla scenes, it's pretty darn close to a full bright 100% window to be able to do that. So just a food for thought, if you will, on that particular topic. But
I'm looking up this thing on Digital Trends. I've got an article on it. They say 10% window on that TV that was 10,000 nits. The tiny one was 4,200 at 10% window.
That's still pretty good.
And it's 5,000 at 5% window. It's 10,000 nits.
So what is it at 100% window?
I'm trying to find it. They don't have a chart. I'm reading it in an article, and I don't see 100%.
It's funny how that's more difficult to find.
Filmmaker
Jonathan's over here like we're talking about TVs. I'm done. It's not large enough for me to replace my projector yet. I don't want to hear it.
Watching some of that CES footage, they're coming.
They are
There's
coming.
a lot of big TVs there. On
I am
display.
waiting for the
Yeah.
day where we're going to get on this stream. Jonathan's going to be here, and all of a sudden you're going to see his camera pan over, and
Yeah.
it's going to be a TV over there, and it's not going to be a projector. That will be the day. It's coming. Well, I don't know. What
Well,
are you going to do
how
with
far
your...
do you think we're away from having like a $5,000 top of the line
OLED?
110-inch screen? Yeah.
OLED? Not like a...
Even, yes, let's say a top of the line
3
OLED,
years maybe
LED OLED, that kind of stuff.
I think we're further 3 years.
for 100-inch or 110.
Yeah, let's say 100. Let's even just go with 100-inch because right now they're $20,000, right? How long until they're $5,000, which is like more consumable for people?
So
like
what I think, and this is what a lot of people are not realizing, is those big panels. It's a big panel lottery, not when you buy them, but for them to manufacture them. There is a lot of waste that goes into those because and that's why you have all of these different levels, because they're like with CPU processors, right? You've got bad segments and you don't want to just throw the whole thing away. So you create a different segment so that you can still sell it. Well, with the 97s, what do? It's kind of an all or nothing situation as far as I understand it.
Manufacturing processes, right? I mean, not have as much waste, which takes time and iterations and
yeah.
But that's the advantage of those segmented displays too. But
I think we're further than 3 years away because it's not very many people are buying those ultra expensive OLEDs. And I don't know that they have an incentive to drive it down. And they haven't had a technological breakthrough in a while on those large ones. Unless there's one with this G5, but I don't think there is with the new series.
They're changing the way
they are, but I don't think that applies to the 97. The 97s has always been an outlier. The 97, even the G4 is still using the same panel as the G2. It's not any different. It's still the same.
Did the G4's price drop on the 97-inch, or is it still at that same area?
From the G2 to the G4, it went down $5,000.
That's not enough.
It didn't drop a significant amount. But I think a big part of that is because the market segment isn't large for those huge for the large OLEDs. So it's just going to take a bit more time for them to come down because LG, Samsung, they don't have the will to put the R&D into those big guys because it's not where the money's at for them.
Well,
it's
and
all in the smaller displays.
Think about the number of people who have space to put that in there. I mean, a 100-inch TV is a big TV. Well, I got that. I'm talking, but
all three of us here have a space for it.
Oh, yeah. But like
all the people watching this show have space for it.
My TV,
all three of us, if that 97-inch OLED was $5,000, would buy it.
No, I don't think I would.
Not to replace the theater. You'd put it in the living room. Absolutely.
So the problem is the way I reconfigured the living room because of the way the door opens. That 77-inch TV fits perfect on that wall, leaving me just enough space to put speakers on either side. I don't have a wall that's big enough to put that TV on in the family room. I'd have to go around, wall over my fireplace, maybe. I'd have to turn around. I have to wall over the fireplace, take it out, rebuild the room, and basically just double the theater.
I'm not talking in a secondary room because my wife wouldn't let me do a 100-inch TV in the living room. I'm talking about in like a theater room. Like
I don't.
Repurpose.
It's too small for that size.
So you're looking at like 120 or something. You'd be up for it.
I don't. I think 120 is even too small now. I want to go.
Isn't that what you're running behind you right now?
And it's too small. Some idiot ruined me.
Wait, you have it right now. It's not downgrading. It'd be an upgrade in every single measurable way.
No, I'm saying I don't want a better 120-inch display. I want a 160-inch display or a 170-inch display. Now, yes, if I was going to stay at 120 inches, I would 100% replace that with a 120-inch OLED if I could. It's better in every single way. But I don't want to be a 120-inch screen anymore. I want to be 170 or 80. But then you run into the problem of needing to light that. So that circles back around to that nits discussion.
So Dwayne, one of my calibrator buddies, just said that the G2 and the G4 is technically brighter. I think, and he's going to tell me here in just a second, I think it's just got different cooling, but we'll see what he says. LG told me it was the same panel. So maybe it's not. Maybe I need to go play doctor. Maybe my doctorate is just as bad as Dr. Meters, and I'm just spouting nonsense. But Dwayne, if anybody knows, it's Dwayne because he operates more on the commercial side.
Yeah, but the big problem for chasing these things on a non-solid panel or a non-panel display is getting this brightness. I mean, on a 120, 135 inch display with the projectors most people are going to have, I think that's about your reasonable limit on getting a good, bright image. And that's your 3000 nits on a positive gain screen.
Do you think there's a too bright?
I think it's too bright when we were watching it at 800.
Yeah. But have we just not acclimated to it?
I think that's too much brightness, especially for your room and on a projected display. I think you would have to basically paint your entire room with some sort of, you're getting to the point where you need to have your entire room velvet. You need to be wearing a velvet suit and like a velvet hood and sitting on a velvet couch to go in there because you're reflecting so much light back off the screen that it's really hurting your contrast.
So Dwayne says the 97 is not exactly the same panel. It's the same panel as the C4. And that we're specifically talking about the 97. So I guess they did something. Guess I was wrong. And I'll admit when I'm wrong. So guys, if you ever see or hear us say something wrong, please tell me because I want to be wrong. I want to be learning. I want to be learning. I want to be corrected because then I can learn. I can know. So Dwayne, that goes for you. Yell at me. Just be like, Ryan, you're wrong. Fix it. Now I don't remember what I was going to say.
But the panel displays have that big advantage of you don't have to worry about reflected light destroying your contrast. They're on off.
Yeah, direct view is important.
This is the same. You can go look at these lifestyle projectors that are coming out. Those lifestyle projectors, I don't think they really need to chase contrast because they're people who are using them in a living room, projecting on a wall, or in a screen in a non-ideal space. Doubling their contrast isn't probably going to be perceivable for most of those people in the situations they're putting them in. You've got to do a lot of work in a room to really maximize the benefit that you're getting out of these higher contrast projectors. And if you're not doing that, I don't know if you're really going to get a benefit.
I'd agree with that.
Especially when you start chasing brightness.
I agree. Now he says they improved the materials in the 2024 models, all of them. So I guess that includes the 97. So it'll be interesting to see how much different it is, if it is different. I'm being corrected, and I like it. Anything else to say on this topic? Jonathan, what is your limit? Like, where do you draw the line? How big does the TV need to be?
I've been saying 120 would make me switch in a heartbeat, but I mean, realistically, and we've talked about this before, mine is a CinemaScope screen. So when it's dialed in and not over zoomed, it's only a 116. It's a 116 when it's dialed in, and it's a 152 when it's over zoomed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the 144 CinemaScope. That means if there's a 115 TV, I'd swap out, right? And would I swap out for a 110? Probably, but that $5,000 range is kind of like my magic hit point. I'm not going to spend $25,000 on display. I'm just not going to.
But what are you going to do about your speakers?
I would figure that out.
Take the center channel out.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably be some sort of either above or below type situation with the line array and just
both.
Make it work, or both.
You're gonna have a hard time with that particular speaker though, because you would have to turn them on the side, and then they're going to run into all sorts of dispersion issues.
I think you could make it work. It might even require me to make a custom box or something. I would figure it out.
I think you'd be plenty happy with just no center and those on either side of it.
That's an option too. I mean, there's a certain point where that would have to be double thought too, though, because I do sit off axis a lot. Like we got 8 people in my house for the last 2 weeks. We've watched stuff down here. I'm not in the main listening position. I give it up. And Phantom Center is not great if you're not in the main listening position.
It's not awful, but yeah, I agree.
So yeah, I mean, I think I've never played with the CBTs horizontally. That would be something I'd try just as a cheap win. It probably won't work because that's way outside of their design spec, but put 2 of the fat centers towards it and then have it angle out to where the thin sides are on the outside. You'd have comb filtering out the wazoo. How noticeable would it be? That'd be the question, whether it would bother you or not. The other thing I'd try is vertical above, vertical below, like probably fat end on the floor, fat end on the ceiling, and then narrows in towards shooting in towards the middle.
Do you have enough height for that?
I'd have room for one. The other one would have to be angled if I wanted to do it. One flat one. So I couldn't do it above and below. It'd be above. It'd be below. It'd be below to try that a vertical way.
Yeah.
Or I just switch center channels. Ultimately, that would be another option potentially. I don't like that idea. I like having uniformity. But there's such it's that whole adage, right? Like if it's incremental jump, I'm not doing it. If it's an OLED, it's so much better than what I have.
So here's what's happening. I'm going to put this in perspective for chat. We talk about this all the time. Right now, all 3 of us are compromising on video. We're making a compromise on video to get better audio with the projectors and acoustically transparent screens.
Well, I'm not compromising yet.
With OLEDs and what we're talking about with direct view displays, it goes the other way. You're compromising on audio for the video. I am unwilling to do that.
I am too.
That's me. I listen to way too much 2-channel, and I use my theater way more for the audio portion because I'm not as much of a video file.
Right.
So
but if you listen to way too much 2-channel, it doesn't even affect you because you're losing a center channel.
Well, it's not what 2-channel, but it's also I do a lot with like concerts on Kscape and stuff like that. So and I want to have everything behind the screen. I want to feel like I'm right there in front of it and I am there. Maybe they'll come up with a direct view that is transparent. I can see them doing that where it's acoustically transparent. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Maybe that'll happen. But then the problem becomes that I'm always weighing is it becomes more difficult to upgrade. You're more married to that display because it's much more difficult to move.
Your current display is not exactly easy to move.
It's easy. It's easier to move than like a 110-inch OLED would be. I don't even know that a 110-inch OLED would fit down the stairs.
Your stairs.
We're getting to the point.
You're carrying a 4x8 sheet of plywood.
I don't remember where this was. I think it was in South Korea or somewhere. They actually, in a lot of living spaces, use cranes to deliver these huge TVs.
Well, and furniture and stuff like that too, because you can't get it into buildings.
But we're getting to a point where they're just going to stop fitting, and we're going to have to go to more of a embrace more of the modular concept that a lot of the big micro LED and LED displays are utilizing.
And then when you hit that, all those problems are gone because you have 4 panels that are smaller, easier to produce without having to worry about as many defects in
potentially, yeah.
Full panel surface. You just have to get the mounting surfaces set up,
yeah,
and the synchronization between them and all the other kind of complications that come with that.
I agree,
but it still doesn't solve the standpoint of the center channel or the speakers behind it, because if your screen is so big that it's covering up the wall, you have to have you have no place for left and rights also.
Yeah, but you just size. I mean, that's where you got to figure out where the sliding scale you're at. You just size down the screen a little bit. Now he's got room for left and rights.
Well, but you got to remember, so like right there behind me, I can't go much bigger than that and have my left and rights in a position where I want them to be. I couldn't fit a 135 behind me. I have to get my speakers too close to the sidewall, and I'm basically putting them in the corner at that point in time. So I was bound at about 120 inch screen. That's why it's not a 135. There was someone who happened to have a 135 sitting in his garage that I could have wandered off with.
I'm about to have a 160.
What are you doing?
We'll talk later. I'm a bad influence.
Yes.
Okay, so any closing comments on this whole discussion.
I'm really surprised to hear that you guys wouldn't switch to OLED for the sake of sound.
No.
Like
No, absolutely
sound
not.
is, I'm the guy that always says sound is really important to me, but OLED is such a tick up over any display technology that's in the projector realm.
I
Such
listen
a tick
to
up.
I listen to so much music that I would never compromise that aspect.
I won't do it. I don't. At least as of right now, I don't think I'll do it unless they come up with some other alternative. I don't.
Same reason I won't go micro perf on a screen because I don't want to deal with the losses and the extra diffraction from micro perf. I would love to be able to pick up the 40% gain.
As a suggestion, I'm not even opposed to like taking one of these apart and building my own center channel out of it. Like going to the do-it-yourself forum on the AVS forum and having those guys help me build a crossover because they'll do it for free and I'll learn, and making it the form factor that I need for under the screen. Then I still have the same sound signature. It's not
under the screen is not where you want your center channel though. The dual center channels I think have a place.
I've done above and below the screen with a speaker, like a traditional center channel, and the comb filtering was measurable but not audible.
Not from a comb filtering standpoint, but from a cohesion of sound field standpoint. There was someone that in this, the Kansas City group who used to have Martin Logan's in his theater, and he had a center channel on the floor.
Who's that?
It didn't sound bad,
but it didn't sound bad. But when objects panned across the front soundstage, there was a drop in the object. You could perceive the object decreasing in height. And it's not because the center channel was poorly designed. It's just you can't get away from that physical aspect.
Stephen, what does this comment mean? So Stephen McGauley says it's also easier for Ryan to say to design need the brightness with the Christie. It doesn't need, so it's also easier for Ryan to say design doesn't need the brightness with Christie. What does that mean? You guys have any idea?
I think something mistyped.
Yeah.
Stephen, can you clarify? I'm happy to get in on that discussion. I think as long as the speakers are on the same plane, and I think you would need two centers in order to make that happen.
Yeah.
I don't care about the comb. I can't hear the comb filter. Technically, there is a benefit to not having it. And maybe if I did an A/B comparison, like having a center right in the middle versus two centers, maybe I'd be able to tell the difference. I've never done that comparison. But in situations where I've experienced the dual center, it's never necessarily bothered me. I just want my big screen.
Right. So I got an illustration of that. In 2015, we had a home theater crawl in Kansas City, and a guy named Randy Bessinger, who you've met at least, Ryan.
Yeah.
He had a full, what was the name of that system? Procilla system, and he had a center speaker above and below the screen. And at that point, like I didn't have my current equipment. We were not green in the hobby, but intermediate probably. I had read all over the forums that causes all kinds of comb filtering, and I hadn't really noticed that in my own room because I had a similar setup using Wharfdales back in the day. Like maybe this is like 2011 timeframe I was doing that, maybe 2010. I measured it. I had my Omni mic at that point. I measured it in Randy's room, and there was obvious signs of comb filtering. If you took smoothing off, you could see comb filtering on the graph. It went like this, like it wasn't a smooth center channel response. It wasn't bad audibly, and I'll tell you this by more than me, because over the course of like that 2015 crawl, we had 30 people there or something, and everyone kind of was commenting on the forum like what they liked most about each room, and the overwhelming comment was in Randy's room that everyone really liked the center dialogue. It was very clear, it was very audible, like audibly good. That was most of those people that came didn't even know about comb filtering. Like that's not something that those people at those levels understood what that even meant. They wouldn't understood the graph they were looking at. And yet,
a big reason for that is
comment was it sounded great.
We have a difficult time hearing high Q issues, which comb filtering, it's just a bunch of high Q problems. If it was a low Q problem and it was like this instead of like this, right? So you had a really wide, lower intensity issue, you would absolutely be able to tell. But if it's like this, even if it's a higher intensity peak,
And we're
I think
talking about really small.
Oh yeah, yeah, very high Q,
very
high
spiky.
Q. My issue with them is, and again, I haven't compared them, is that from my understanding, a lot of that high Q stuff you can run into ringing, and you can create some anomalies there. I think that would actually be an interesting comparison, right?
Mhm.
Maybe we should somehow do that where we compare above and below center channels versus a center channel that's in the middle. And you're
Versus
absolutely
no
going to be
center
able to
channel.
tell. Shut up, Bob. You're absolutely going to be able to tell a difference in the measurement, but can you hear it is the question that I would have.
Yeah.
Can most
That'd be
people
a
hear
good
it?
test, because
That'd
I'd
be a
like
fun demo to set up for people.
blind test. It would be very interesting on that.
Mhm.
Maybe for a future M-Wave even type thing where you got a lot of people coming through.
Mhm.
Yep. Could set all 3 configurations up and just go between them and not tell people which one's at.
Oh, like have a one below screen.
One below the screen, one behind the screen, one above and below. I mean, they're not going to know which ones are on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you could figure it out pretty quick for below. And if you did Phantom Center, you could figure that out pretty quick.
Well, maybe. I mean, everyone thought they could figure out a lot of different things over the.
Well, the
course of
Phantom Center you'll be able to figure out because if you get up and move around, you'll be able to.
If you get up and move
identify where
around, but
that is.
if you create a static test, I mean, how much? It's nice to be able to show people: is this a viable option for you? Is this something I should consider? Is this good enough? Is this, do I like it, or do I hate it so much that I need to have my center channel?
So I'm
creating
watching
more
some of the
work for
comments in
myself.
here. Miles is saying, "Hey, like, why couldn't you just push the vocals left and right? It wouldn't be so bad." They do. So if you have Phantom Center, your vocals are pushed left and right. But the problem is that the left and right, if you're not in the exact center, don't image perfectly.
Right. You get more of an influence of one channel versus the other, one side versus the other, and your image shifts.
The sound is a little
awful.
latency. You get a little echoing.
You can fix some of that stuff with crossfiring your speakers, and that has certain issues that come with it. There's ways to kind of mitigate it, but it's not.
But then you're compromising for a compromise.
You're compromising for, yes. But again, if the seat you only care about is the seat that you sit your butt in.
Yeah, but then we're going back to the comment I made about wides and stuff and having less channels with what we're doing now with active room treatment and support, and you're potentially creating situations where you can't get to necessarily the SPL that you may have been able to with another speaker in the loop.
Yeah.
Reading. So Steven commented a couple times. I'm going back. Oh, this. So Steven clarified. He said, when talking about the video wall, it's easier to not have a want for it because you have such high, bright, awesome projector. So easier to not have the lust. I've had JVCs. I've had Epsons. I had an LG for a while. It doesn't have anything to do with the brightness. The brightness isn't what I'm getting at. I will not trade my audio for video. I won't do it. The audio is way too important for me. The emotion that conveys is way too important to me. So unless I can get to a point where I'm not compromising on that, and it is getting more difficult now that I've seen what these things can do. So you are kind of right in that context, but it's a non-compromisal area for me. Maybe if we do this test and I can't tell, maybe. But right now, assuming that I could tell where things are anchored, having had a center channel below a screen, like sound bars, I have a sound bar in my living room and I can tell, even if it's right under the display, I can tell. But I don't care because I'm in the living room. So it's just things that I'm not willing to compromise. I get your point though, but I'm not necessarily chasing the brightness. I think, Jonathan, you would switch even if the brightness of the TVs didn't change. You're not really worried about necessarily the brightness. It's the contrast and the ANSI, all this other stuff that you're gaining from having something like an OLED in comparison to any projector, really.
It's a beautiful picture.
It is.
I mean, There's no denying that. I mean, you get, and once the video walls get a little further, you would have a beautiful picture having a giant space up there that's fully illuminated with on-off segments. It's going to be a great viewing experience. It's just going to have compromises from this on the audio side.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question though. Van Gool says, I don't know if this is actually a question or if he's just commenting. Do you need your center pointed up towards you so the sound is going to your ears and not to your knees?
That's more of the
Yes.
off-axis response to the speaker than
You want the speaker pointed towards your ears, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of people make that mistake and they put a center channel in a TV console and it's just firing into their crotch. They're like, why can't I understand the dialogue? Well, you could if your ears were where your butt is, maybe.
maybe
Never
like
mind
today-
that it's receded back into the cabinet and there's like wood overhanging 6 inches on the speaker and it's like a little tunnel that it's coming out of. Yeah.
Well,
maybe
so
like
here's
maybe
the
like
sound
lay
as
down
it
on the
comes
couch when you
out.
watch, and you want it that height.
Well, yeah,
it was a
but if it's
purpose design.
recessed into the cabinet,
Yeah,
like
then
now you're creating
yeah.
reflections before it even gets out of the TV console.
Well, you want more gain. You're trying to horn load your sound bar.
Son of a bad man.
Oh man.
I was thinking a little bit more on this center channel thing. So here, this is another way of putting it. Over the years, many people have asked, like, how much of an improvement do you think it is having your center channel behind your screen versus like below your screen? I think the common answer I've read and stuff is people say like, it's not like it's not going to change your life, but it's better. Clearly, it's
It
better.
is better.
We'll all
Absolutely.
agree it's better. Put a percentage on it. Is it 15% better to have it behind the screen versus not behind the screen?
I'd rather not have one than have it on the floor.
I'd probably say it's 30% better.
Okay, so whatever your percentage is, the percentage of improvement from a projected image to an OLED of the same size is way higher than any number you're going to come up for
That's
the
if
audio.
you're going to prioritize visual over audio. I get that there's going to be a massive improvement by doing that, and I'm not.
It's got to be like several 100% better. Like not just 50% better, like several 100%. Like we watch Planet Earth on OLED versus a projector. It's a totally different world. It's it's like so much better versus 15%, 30% better. You're losing a little bit here, but gaining so much there. That's all I can say.
If
I had a dedicated 2-channel room that was equally well treated and set up, I would be willing to compromise on that in the theater space.
So I need
But
to
I don't
come
have
up with
that.
a way to do this comparison. All right, I got to figure this one out.
But they don't even have anything in your neck of the woods, Ryan. You're going to be waiting 20 years before they have a 150-inch OLED that's affordable. Maybe
Maybe
longer.
It's going to be micro LED panels. They won't. That size is never going to ship.
Like for you, there's no option. If you want a 160-inch screen, there's nothing except for like mini walls. Like
I could sit 3 feet from a 97.
Yes.
And just
but you
wear it as
did that-
glasses on my face.
You did that at Kevin's house, and the brain doesn't like
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
I didn't think I was sitting in front of a huge screen at Kevin's house. I thought I was sitting in front of a huge TV, but not a huge screen per se. It is a huge screen, but it's not the same.
And I think this is where I saw a comment about this, but I think it gets a little misdirected, where people say that projectors are more cinematic than TVs, but they say that it's the light. And I don't think it has anything to do with the light. I think it has exactly what to do with what Jonathan just said. And it has to do with how our perception takes all of that in and how we view a huge screen in comparison to a much smaller TV. Like our brains subjectively are looking at that and subconsciously are looking at that, and we're processing it. And it makes us feel a certain way. When you're at a movie theater, in a commercial theater, the screen having IMAX, it makes you feel a certain way, right? It conveys something. You're not going to get that if I've got my phone taped to my face.
Right. I was literally going to do the same thing. I was going to say, you can get that kind of same viewing angle by doing this.
It doesn't feel the same.
No.
Does not feel the same.
Because
it looks the same.
But you need comparative objects in your field of view in order to make the
But
image
not
seem
even
bigger.
comparative objects. Your brain still knows. Even it knows that it's a phone attached to your face and it does not feel the same.
Mhm.
As dumb as that is, it does not feel the same. So I think that's where people go the wrong way. It's the light, it's reflected, and maybe there's some type of measurable difference. There is probably, but I don't think that's the point. The point is it's the scale and how we perceive that scale.
I love watching movies on the OLED TV upstairs. I can watch them with the lights on. I can watch them with the lights off. It's a great picture all the time, but it's not the same experience. Even when you sit on the floor and get a lot closer to it.
I can tell you that an OLED isn't going to do as well with reflections, though. You're not going to be able to see crap. Not that you're going to have to worry about that in a theater. We just watched Silo. So we've been watching Silo. And we watched the latest episode in our living room this afternoon. And I'm looking at it like, I can't even see half the time because it's a dark image and it's daylight in our room. My living room, super bright. I'm like, what is happening half the time in this?
The reflections are so much better now than they used to be.
They are, but it's still
like, I mean, go back and
think about really dark.
Think about back when you had a plasma. I mean, imagine having a plasma in a room.
I still have a plasma.
Well, I've got one too. I still watch it all the time. But like, picture that TV in a room with side windows. It's a mirror at that.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Their off-axis viewing is great, but I mean, they just there's so much reflections you can't really see.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
We've talked about this on one of the podcasts a long time ago, not recently, but Kevin brings up the point about using VR, and the phone in front of your screen only goes so far as like not being something your brain comprehend. If you get that VR headset going, that can sometimes take over your brain to where you're not thinking that it's a small screen. Like if you're using like a index or something. Have you guys played with those and kind of noticed that? So I don't know all the mechanics. It may have something to do with the peripheral. It may have something to do with even with the size of like the wall, the room, the ceiling height. Like you can kind of take all that in. When that's blocked off with like a VR headset and you see nothing except for the screen, your brain kind of trips out a little bit and thinks that it's.
So I've done a lot of VR for my combat flight sim stuff, and it can trick your brain into some different avenues. But I'm going back to big screens, and now I'm throwing the peripheral objects in. It is a different experience when you know it is a big screen. Like I know this thing is 40 feet tall and it's X wide, 100 feet wide, or whatever they are, and it's just a different level of immersion.
You use IMAX example. You're seeing 10 rows ahead of you, 20 rows ahead of you, with 50 people ahead of you. You know it's a huge image, and it's
subconsciously, and it makes you feel a certain way, and you can't get rid of that.
And the other issues with sitting close to the screen is you can't get a good audio experience with it either. When you get those speakers too close to you, when you're sitting on top of everything at the scales and the placement angles that you're going to need to sit 6 feet away from a big screen, you're going to have a hard time building that same experience.
Yeah, I think you could kind of build it, but it's just the other part of it is
unless you go
cinema is something that should be shared. I feel like you're sharing it with somebody else. And if everybody's got a VR headset on, I might as well be on an amusement park ride. I'm not sharing it with anybody. I'm just
wait till every amusement park ride is a VR headset and a KUKA arm.
MW has this to say.
He's probably right. Yeah, I could see that. But I don't think it's just focus. There's a lot of, I talked about this in the video I released this week. A lot of it is this psychological phenomenon called priming. And we are constantly taking in all of this different stuff, stimuli, different things, and they're causing us to feel and perceive things in different ways. And that whole being in front of a huge screen, when you know it is a huge screen, is very different than putting a VR headset on. It's just not the same. And maybe we can get to that point where if we just always use VR headsets, that can stop being an issue. Like we talked about with brighter images and nits and having to acclimate to them. But to me, there's just no replacement. We talk about no replacement for displacement. I don't think there's any replacement for a large screen for a cinematic experience. has nothing to do with the reflected light or anything. It's just scale and it being further away from me and peripheral. And so part of it is the focus and stuff, but yeah, that's my feeling. So you guys can have your TVs. I'll keep the 160.
And it's life experiences too. I mean, you replicate some of that experience of going to a theater, seeing that big screen in front of you. It evokes a certain emotion based upon your previous experiences.
I was listening to something. So my brother had me subscribe to The Atlantic. It's they do a lot of publications and stuff. I've enjoyed a lot of the stuff that they talk about. I try and stay away from all the political stuff, but they've had some interesting stuff that they talk about. And one had nothing to do with what I'm about to say. And it was talking about loneliness, but it was an interesting fact that came up with theaters. And they said that even a decade ago, or let's call it 2 decades ago in the early 2000s, people were going to the theater, the commercial cinema, like 3 times a month
or
multiple
more
times. Multiple times. This was the average person, not even just a cinephile. Now the average is like 3 times a year.
I have, so my kids are, my younger kids are, my younger twins are 5 and my oldest daughter is 7. She has been to 2 movies in a theater, in a commercial theater, and my twins have been to 1. Yeah. Some friends rented out a movie theater because they're super cheap to rent out. And we watched like a second run of the Paw Patrol movie. And the other one I took my daughter to was Frozen 2 when it came out.
I've seen all the Paw Patrol movies, multiple. They're not bad.
That's the only times we've been to the movie. But they come down here and we watch a couple movies a week down in the basement in the theater.
So I thought that was interesting. So maybe we're moving towards the direction of the small screen. I mean, everybody, all the audio engineers and stuff, they're designing for the Apple headphone earpods and stuff. They're designing the dynamic range to the lowest common denominator because that's what everybody's using.
And it takes less bandwidth.
Yeah. So maybe that's the direction they're going, and I'm just going to have to sit down and shut up and deal with it. But to me, there's no replacement, and it's going to be really difficult for me to go that direction. Maybe if Jonathan switches to a TV, maybe it'll do it for me. But I've seen a lot of big displays. I'm going to see a lot of big displays when we go to ISE next month, and it just never does it. Doesn't feel the same to me. Looks really good. God dang, it looks really good. You get in front of like a Barco Bifrost or something, their huge micro LED wall. Oh, man, that looks good. At a full field, like 100 or 1,000 nits. Stupid bright. It's like you're standing in front of a car headlight. But it just doesn't feel the same. Got to get past that feeling. So next week topic, large format micro LEDs. Hopefully the NDA timeframes will be up by then. Oh, the CES stuff? Maybe? I don't know what you're talking about, Herc. Anyway, should we answer some questions? We don't have a ton of them.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do them? You just watch for questions, Jonathan?
There's some pinned, but yeah.
I've pinned them. I'll go through them. So Finster asks, have a Denon 3600H, bought in 2018. I read that after Odyssey, I should be adjusting the distance because of a glitch in Odyssey. Is that correct? And how much should I be adjusting by? Is it absolutely necessary? That guy knows way more about this than anybody else here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it. I've had a 6800. I saw one of the comments said that's a problem with the 6800. I have a AV10 now. It probably still has the same problem. Pursue it and make up your own mind, man. Like, give it a shot. Some people stand by it and says it makes all the difference in the world. I think sometimes we split hairs, and I think that might be getting into that realm.
Well, what's your perception of it?
So basically, there's some sort of problem between meters and feet. They didn't do the sound calculation right by some decimal
or the
point.
Speed of sound and stuff.
I mean, it's just not exactly perfect. And you can go in there and just calculate it yourself and change the distances to be perfect. How audible that is,
I think You're doing your subs with a mini DSP though.
I am.
I
And-
think
and
that's where this could be an issue.
In my manual calibration with my Omni mic, where you're seeking the absolute peak, like you're combining all the subs together, you're getting the highest level of output. You can do that phasing basically by
Mhm.
setting distances manually. I did that with manually in this room. I set all the subs out the absolute best I could, and then I ran Odyssey and I compared the two, and I got the exact same number. So if their calculation's off, it's not off by very much, because I couldn't manually set it any better, and I didn't have any pretense of what it was going to set it to. This was just an experimentation to see like if we fell in the same ballpark. We fell in the same number. So like Odyssey's
Is that on
Maybe
the
they
new-
were both wrong.
But Jonathan, is that on your current processor or is that on the
That's
old
on the
one?
AV10. I did it with
Okay.
the AV10.
And I think someone just said they fixed that with the latest one.
If they fixed on the AV10, then okay, that just verifies even more that that works. But I had the 6800 before the AV10, and multiple people had heard my room, myself included. I didn't really think there was very much difference at all between the 6800 and the AV10. Like if I wasn't told which one was which, I probably wouldn't know which one was playing. I didn't switch my amps. I had the same amps. I just switched processors. So I had the 6800 in preamp mode. I had the AV10. It's only a preamp. I couldn't even tell the difference.
When we had that 2 years ago at M-Wave, I mean, there was no corrections put in and everything sounded.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Very similar to all
use
the
any
other ones.
auto EQ or anything. I just set up to set distances. So I'd done both Odyssey on both units to set distances, and then left it alone. I didn't notice some revolutionary change.
I think
didn't
if
have
you're
a quick
going to
AV.
notice, it's going to be in the subs though.
I forever have liked my bass with Odyssey run and turned off. So it sets a distance, turned off. I've never noticed a big problem. I don't know.
I'll have to test. I want to test if
I think I almost guarantee this. We've seen this so many times. If somebody there's so much ability to have a placebo unintentionally. Like, hey, I've measured this better.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's better now. I can see that it's better on the graphs. It actually sounds better, I think. Okay, it sounds better, I know. Like you convince yourself, you just walk down that path. It sounds so much better now. I can see it's better here, it's better. Look, it's objectively better. If average Joe left the room and came back in between the two, would he know the difference? I don't think so. I think we've seen this so many times on this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my favorite mid bass test now. I was doing a demo today for a couple. We went through everything, and the third to last song I played was The Who.
Mhm.
I didn't realize how hard that bass hits.
Oh yeah.
It felt like in my chair that somebody was hitting my back with a hammer.
Which track are you guys talking about?
Wolf Totem.
Wolf Totem.
Okay.
It was
The HU.
It was somebody was standing behind me and I was just getting punched is how hard that was hitting. I had never felt that. And I wonder if I start going and adjusting how quickly that'll go away. Maybe it won't, but I feel like that would be an interesting test to see how fast the bass falls apart if I start adjusting that.
I mean,
I'd have
even
to adjust a bunch of different subs.
when Jeffrey was doing that first manual calibration on your room, I mean, when that stuff started getting dialed in, you could feel how much you could feel viscerally, like how much tighter that impact got.
I got to think about the best way to test this, because I thought about that and adjusting, but then I've got 11 subs, and how would I go about adjusting that? How do you make that work? I guess I could just do it with 2 subs and then start adjusting them and see how it falls apart.
Roll a D6 and add that many milliseconds of delay to each each sub.
Good question. Miguel Munaz asks, how to get 4K 120 on my NP5 from my PS5. I got an HDMI Fiber 2.1, but I don't see it when I click output on my JVC.
You've got to enable it in your receiver, in your PS5, and on your JVC.
I'm betting it's the receiver.
Does the receiver pass 4K 120?
Well,
you got to go to enhanced on the projector. You got to go to enhanced 8K on the receiver, and on the PS5, you got to go into whatever mode it has. I don't
Well,
have
the projector should do it by itself if it
Uh-uh.
receives that signal. The
I don't
JVCs
think
do.
so.
My NZ9 did.
You have to
You ha-
turn that on the Epson, and I thought I remember on the
No,
2100 I had to
anything
turn
on
it
the
on.
JVC.
Not on the JVC.
No.
It's on by default.
Okay, I don't believe you, but okay.
The JVC's default to E to A, which is HDMI 2.1. So you can, if you send it a 4K 120 signal, it'll do it.
Which HDMI chip does this thing have?
Nobody believes me.
I felt like I had to change some setting on the RS2100 when I got that at launch, but it's been 3 years ago, so I might have forgotten.
Nope.
There was an option for E to A and E to B, but
It comes default at E to A.
right.
Okay,
Guys, I'm in these all the time. Like it's
all right. I will stand corrected.
they default
remember.
there. They can
Okay.
have HDMI problems in E to A, absolutely, where you have to switch back to E to B, but they default to E to A. All the new projectors, the Sonys do the same thing. The LS12000, I think
you have to turn it on. I think
now they're shipping with it on. I don't think
they're on HDMI firmware 2. Maybe it's on by default now.
Yeah, the biggest issue I could see for him is that if his receiver, depending upon what he has, sits in the signal chain, doesn't have a.
I think it's the receiver.
Is stuck on an 18 gigabit switching mechanism, was HDMI 2.0.
And they don't ship in HDMI 2.1 mode. The Denons don't, and the AB10 didn't. You have to turn it on. It's enhanced 8K is what it's called.
Try the simple test here, Miguel, is bypass the AVR and plug the PS5 directly into the projector and see if it works. If it does, you know it's the AVR. If it doesn't, well, now you know it's not the AVR and something else. Could be the cable, honestly.
It could be the cable too, because the cable might. But the PS5, I think, is only is that 32 gigabit, or is it even that fast? It's slower than the Xbox.
It's 32
or 27.
It's 32. You're right, Bob.
Speaking of HDMI, I'm having a cable sent to me that I'm very excited about.
Oh, what's this one do?
This one is from a company called Cords.
Okay.
And they have increased some gauge in the wiring. They've changed some chipsets. Supposedly, they've done a ton of testing with it, and it fixes a lot of the problems we're running into.
Because of the copper carrier channel that
I think there's more to it than that, but there's a lot of, they're very confident. They're very objective. I know the engineer that they sent it to. We work with them quite frequently. I'm very excited about it.
Now, are you having, you have a couple that are full fiber cables right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have any issues with those?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Sometimes. It depends. It's more of a, it's not the fiber's fault, it's the dongle's fault. Okay. And there's other limitations because they're using Owens Corning glass fiber. They're very delicate. The heads are, sometimes they can be problematic with like being DOA. Sometimes it just depends. And then another company, I won't say who, is designing a cable from the ground up that is full fiber optic, and that the entire power for this cable, because this is one of the problems, is talking to the engineer for this company actually yesterday. He said that the entire cable, both the sending and receiving side for these AOCs, is powered by the sending side. I didn't know that. You can inject on the receiving side, potentially. I knew this part. But the injectors, the majority of them, do absolutely nothing because they don't provide the proper power. They're underpowering everything, both from a current and voltage standpoint, and it's just not delivering what needs to happen. And how the injection is happening in a lot of these cable heads and the chipsets, it can actually cause failures on a lot of the buses because of how they're designed and what they're doing. So this cable from this engineer, which I'm also very excited about, this is one that is not Cords. These are two brand new ones. This one, supposedly the entire cable can be run on 100 milliamps.
Okay.
Which is fantastic because it is way under what the spec says the cable needs to be and what the HDMI output needs to provide. Yeah. Because one of the we've talked about this in previous streams, a big problem with this is it's not a set number. It is a variance that they have to fall into. So if it skews to the low part of that variance and the cable in any way attenuates that down, or the receiver needs more, it's just not going to work. So because of that variance, it just opens all kinds of problems. And since they've gotten in low with 100 milliamps, I'm hopeful that it's going to solve a lot of stuff. So there should be some new stuff coming. I'll know more after ISE. That one from this other company is supposed to come in the next couple months. There's some cool stuff coming. I'm really excited about it. Hopefully they fix some stuff and then just don't go break it with HDMI 2.2. That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah. It'll all be useless and causing more problems next year.
Go back to that previous comment real quick. I want to show him how to do this so he knows where to go, because
I don't know where the MP5 went.
Okay.
I unstart it. So
do you guys see my Marantz overlay right now?
Yep.
This will be the same thing he'll see when he logs into his menu. He's going to go to video, and then he's going to go to 4K, 8K signal format, and he's going to change. These are probably too small. Let me make them bigger. He's going to change that from standard, which is what it's going to come in, either standard or enhanced. I don't remember. One of those two. It's not 8K enhanced.
I think it's enhanced.
He's going to change them all to 8K enhanced, where they need to be 8K enhanced. If you got an old unit, you might as well leave it on what it is. Like,
be aware. Be very aware that you may run into the problems that I've talked about through multiple streams, though.
That's kind of why for older units that can't have any chance of using HDMI 2.1, I just leave it on the standard setting. I don't change it for that.
Or get a room.
Yeah. So this is my Fire TV stick. That doesn't even need to be that. That's not HDMI 2.1. Home theater is Apple TV. That's HDMI 2.1. So I have that. Xbox 360 or Xbox Series X is.
Yeah, but what are you getting on the Apple TV that's doing that? What benefit are you getting?
I don't know, because they don't have the 120 hertz, but use any of the other stuff that might be in there built into the chipset, like quick media switching that doesn't work.
You're not using QMS. Come on.
It doesn't work.
You're not even getting 4K 6444. So I mean, yeah, I don't think you're exceeding 18.
But if it's working, it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just leave it alone.
Yeah. The rest of that stuff can be 8K enhanced, so I just leave it on that setting.
Yeah.
HDMI 2.1. Okay, that's it.
MW says, can Mad VR play Dolby Vision? No. It can't. So it doesn't advertise Dolby Vision in the EDID. It can do low latency Dolby Vision, but not what everybody considers Dolby Vision.
So it's its own tone mapping.
It's going to do, it's going to advertise no, and then it's just going to typically get an HDR10 container. Is how that's going to go. We don't need it. We've done the comparisons. We're better. So yeah. Enough about that one. MW. Anyone see the fan-made Dragon Ball Z short movie with Trunks?
No, but I need to go look for it now that I've just heard about it.
Now I need to see that. Did you watch Dragon Ball Z Super? Or Dragon Ball Super, Bob?
I can't remember the last one I watched. It's been a while.
Where they do the tournament?
Yes, I think I saw that. Well, there's been a couple different tournaments.
Like 5 years ago is when it came out.
I might not have seen that one then.
You should watch. It's good. You should watch it.
Dragon Ball Z was a great show where you could the entire 30-minute episode was really 5 minutes of content.
And it was a lot of 25 minutes of
well, it was the first 5 to 7 minutes were last time on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, and then a commercial,
then a third commercials, then you get a couple minutes of content, and then it was 5 to 7 minutes of next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. Anime versions of giant robots. It would have been perfect for Jonathan. Tim G. Trinov Alt 32, so altitude 32, rears for waveforming. Is 215s okay if I have 4 18s up front? I have space issues at the back, huge bifold doors, 11.58. You're already compromising by doing a 4.2. I really think you're going to want 18s. You could do, Tim, if you're still here, if you made these, just change the box shape. Do the same volume, but change the shape. Make them more shallow and taller or wider. See if that fits or fixes your problem. You could make them super tall, but I would not compromise that way. You're already compromising on support subs. You're going to need that in the back. Feel free to ask a follow-up if you need to. Jeffrey Keneflake. Kenefake. Kenefake. How do I say that?
I don't know, but I can answer the question.
Kind of fake? Yeah, that would be my guess.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, so subjectively aimed at me, no, I don't. And everyone's going to have a little bit different subjective feel on that. But I'm familiar with Mad VR. I have it on JRiver. I have JRiver's Mad VR equivalent, or their alternative, I should say, instead of equivalent. I've tried both. I use them on my home theater PC when I'm doing demos for people. But on my daily use of the thing, I use the Apple TV, which has HDR10 plus. There you go. HDMI 2.1 is only on HDR10 plus. Like that handshake's there, and that projector LS12000 does support HDR10 plus. So that gets me,
which is coming to Disney Plus either now
All
or
right.
very soon.
That gets
Fair
me
enough, Jonathan.
on some content, not very much to be honest, but it's some content.
Fair. No, you're absolutely right.
I didn't think of that earlier, but now I did. So the other thing is for my Blu-rays, I have a Panasonic UV player, and I'm using the basic luminance, so it's doing some tone mapping before it ever hits my projector. Like I think, what is it? The Panasonic's basic luminance is like 600 lumens or something like that. I think it maps it down to.
You can change that, can't you?
Yes, you can choose basic or OLED or standard or high luminance. I just have it on the lowest setting. It's not matched particularly for my projector. It's just like generic tiers, and it's on the lowest one. To me, between the Apple TV's HDR10 plus on some content and then the Blu-ray player, that works for me. I don't have the need for an external processor. Subjectively speaking, one man's opinion.
You want to borrow one?
And he'll have a different opinion, and that's fine.
You want to borrow one?
I've seen them plenty of times. I've seen them.
You haven't lived with one yet, though.
That's true. I just don't want to. I mean, it seems like such a headache to have to like go to bypass for games and stuff. Like when I'm playing games, I'm wanting low latency. I don't want to have to fiddle with any of that stuff. And then you
create a second loop.
Your lip sync issues, like that kind of stuff bothers me when I see that. And it seems like something that would be introducing that in different types of content and fiddling around with that all the time.
Use AB mode on your processor.
AB mode is reserved for 6 and 4 speakers.
I don't know.
So I don't know. To me, I do see the value. It's just not something I see the need for personally. Like I'm not going to condemn anyone who gets it. I say they're fine. I just don't need it personally. So Ryan's over there.
I can respect that. No, I can respect that.
On the other side.
I think it depends on your use case.
I'm also not that bothered by a little bit of clipping. Like I like some brightness clipping. Like when we were watching the Dolby Vision stuff and you guys are like, oh, that's awful clipping. I'm like, I like that. It mimics real life to me.
We've talked about that.
Is the snow?
Yeah. Like
we've talked about that.
You're in a white out blizzard. There's snow coming down and you can't see the horizon. Okay, that's the way it works in real life.
This is why Jonathan almost died when he was in the mountains last time with his camper and it was on fire. He's like, I can't see. It's clipping. It's clipping. I can't see.
No, I'm just saying, like a little clipping doesn't mean the end of the world to me. Like I'm not that offended by it.
Remind me not to drive with Jonathan when it's snowing. Oh man. Okay.
Like, well,
fair enough.
With the Mad VR, I can see 2 miles away. Well, that's not how it works in the snowstorms. You can't.
At least for Jonathan. At least for Jonathan, that's not how that works. So, Jeffrey, I'm going to weigh in here. I would say it absolutely makes a difference, but it's dependent on your use case and what compromises you're willing to do. Like in Jonathan's, if you can't run another HDMI to the projector and you game a lot, you've got to add an HDMI switch. You have to come up with workarounds in order to make that possible to get around a Mad VR, either running a second output from the AVR to the projector, doing HDMI switching, things like that. There are compromises potentially, depending on, maybe there's not in your particular case, but there can be. So I think it is a net positive. Like it's going to make the image look better. Plus it gives you, I think, more control over the image and how you subjectively want it to look. But to Jonathan's point, and I think he makes a good point, is sometimes it can be a headache depending on what you need to do in order to do what you want to do. Absolutely.
If you had a pure cinema room, I think like if all you're doing is watching Kaleidoscape or something and it's hooked up to that, cool, good.
Or if you could run a second HDMI and use the second video out from your AVR. Yeah. Okay. Good question. Herc Dryer, thoughts on large format micro LED screens. AWOL just announced a 162 inch 0.9 pixel pitch 1000 nit package for $50K.
So I was
have to
watching
see
some
it.
CES coverage, like I said, and some of those video walls, people said, like, one of the podcasters I was watching was saying, like, I can see the lines when it goes to a dark screen. Is that your experience? I haven't even really seen these screens outside of going to the Kansas City Zoo and seeing like some.
I've seen a lot of them. There is a big difference in quality walls versus non-quality walls.
On the quality walls, do you ever see the grid pattern? Like, do you see it, or is it not there?
You can see it in the really good ones if there's no content on, and I am looking for it.
Like if you're close, or can you see it from the seating area?
Like 10 feet. Is that like
it gets more difficult to see when you're? I'd have to walk up to it.
Right,
but those are the really good
bright
ones.
corners like JVC kind of you can see it, or is it?
No,
it gets barely perceivable at 10 feet away.
Are you talking to Herc Dryer or me?
No, to you on the good ones you've seen.
You can't see it at all when it's playing content.
But in a are there situations in content, black screen, transition
Not on
screens?
the good ones. Okay. Not if it's done right. But to do it right, it requires professional installation. Your seams have to be perfect. And it's just more difficult to do. Like when you start getting into these cheaper ones, the problem is you start to have offsets and you start to have things that aren't perfect. And remember that this one at CES was probably installed by the manufacturer. What happens when you're asking a consumer to do that installation? You're just asking for trouble. And if you're off at all,
it's noticeable.
You're going to notice it.
Yeah.
Think about how easy you notice a dead pixel in a display. You're going to notice it. That's maybe not in all content, but you're going to notice it if it's off. And that's, I think, a big reason why these can be difficult is because they're hard to do.
There's a lot of consumers who can't even hang a picture straight on the wall.
Well, and the other thing that people don't think about is they're heat generators in a lot of situations. And I'd be interested to know how much power this one's taking. Because for the big ones, I mean, if this one's only 1,000 nits, 1,000 nits isn't. I mean, I guess on 162 inches, that's quite a lot. But is that 1,000 nits for like a 2 or 10% window? I'd be interested to know about that.
I'm trying to look it up.
Are you guys keeping track of chat? Because I'm not.
I am, yes.
Okay.
I put a couple more pinned comments in there.
So for me, Herc, I'd say not worth it. There's too many variables and complications that can go with that, in my opinion. But maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to see it. I'll see it at ISE. If I can get a way to go look at some stuff. John Lira. Guys, did any of you guys get a chance to watch Shane Lee's recent video speaking of JTR subs versus RBH, new 21? Interested in your opinions.
I have not, but I probably will this week now that I have just heard about that video also.
Jonathan, did you see it? I haven't.
No.
I'm curious how the new driver is because I can't remember who this is. It Pierce Audio? I think they sourced that from Pierce Audio.
But isn't that RBH really expensive?
Yes. I think that's if that's the new one that they send with like a couple 100 pounds of lead shot to pour in it once you get it, then yeah.
How much is it?
15, maybe more. It's a lot.
That's a lot.
Or maybe I'm thinking the bigger one.
They have a bigger one?
I don't know. Let me look that up. I know it's a lot.
MW's comment. I'm gonna not say it out loud, but made me chuckle. I see Kevin made this comment, and it's on the previous topic, so I'm going to hit it real quick because it is of value. With the alignment, couldn't they just use like a strong array of magnets to kind of suck it in where it can't?
They do.
Okay.
But then your magnets have to be aligned. And if they come in...
manufacturing I mean, that's
Yeah, but are you going to have a 162-inch frame where all the panels get mounted into, or is it all individual that you have to install? Because if it's all individual that you have to install, then those magnets have to be lined up. And if they're not lined up, then the panel's off. So it's depends, I guess, on what they're doing. But a lot of times, think about what manufacturers make, and they're not even right. So if you get one that's not perfectly aligned from the manufacturer, even if it's a full panel that you just add micro LED panels to, if it's wrong, then you're wrong. A lot of the big walls do that, and then you can micro adjust them to get everything to line up for the more expensive stuff. It's really hard to do. We notice this stuff really, really easy, even for things that are super small. So,
okay, the unrivaled RBH sub, I think they're either 12 or 17, depending upon if it has 1 or 2 driver in it.
It's a lot.
It's a yes.
That is a lot.
But I think Pierce Audio makes that driver for them. I don't know. I've seen pictures of it a few times. I think that's the lead shot one.
Huh. I'd like to hear it in a non M-Wave listening room.
I don't remember if they had that one at M-Wave. I can't remember what
There
sub
was a 20. There was a 21. It was
might
there.
have had.
I don't know if it was this one. I mean, it probably wasn't this one.
I can't remember if it was this one or not. The RBH room was. It was every time I went there and tried to listen to something, I could never get a good demo in that room. Not because like they did a bad job, but just because like things were going on in the room. They were talking to people. I just never got into that room at a time to spend time with it.
Herc Driver says you can reflect the center off the screen by placing it on a ceiling and aiming at the screen. You cross it over at 1500 and send the lower frequencies to the left and right channels.
That's the same as doing reflected Atmos channels on the top hats of speakers.
I've never experienced this though.
With a more controlled screen to reflect it off of, potentially. But with the angle, how would you get the angle right? Because it's
then your angle is only for what a set amount of seats.
A 90-degree reflection off the screen. If you have it on the diagonal, it's going to go to the floor, not to the seats.
You'd have to go shallow.
Yeah. There's compromises in control. I mean, it's a compromise. And
then there's a couple people who are now doing those. The Ascendo has that in ceiling over the angled enclosure thing for.
Yeah, but they're not reflective. They're
not reflective, right? But they have that option. Grimani, I think, has one too. There's a couple other ones that have options.
Wisdom has one. There's options because it is a thing. I mean, what do you do with a large scale micro LED wall? Those you have to do those. There is no other option. So you could.
His follow-up comment is saying that it's industry's finest that are saying that works. Grimani and Pose.
But I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that this in and of itself is a compromise. Like it's just it's a different compromise in comparison to the other ones. Just different.
I don't doubt that it can work. I just don't think it's better than a traditional solution.
Yeah, I'd have to experience it. I don't really like. Yeah. I'd have to experience it before I could weigh more into that.
I looked at speakers like that years ago with who does the what's that kind of pseudo custom CI installer brand that Control 4 either bought or merged with. Shoot, I can't think of the name of that. They have a bunch of in ceiling angled speakers like that too.
Sonance?
Nope, not Sonance.
I don't know. No idea. True?
No. Why can't I think of the name of the speaker company?
Well, keep thinking. We're going to move on. Another Herc Driver comment. According to Pose, the above-below center won't work for stereo imaging, even if you can solve the fact it's not encoded stereo channel. The human ear doesn't image in the vertical plane.
Triad.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with that. The above-below center channel, I've personally experienced it in my own room and in Randy Bessinger's room, and it works fine. I mean, like I just said, we had 30 people say it was resolved really well. Like,
it's a compromise. It's not going to be as clean or good, but Storm does this where you can use a center height as reinforcement if you have a center below a screen to bring the image into the middle. I don't remember what the feature's called. And then Sony also has this built into their AVRs where you can do this, and it's part of the calibration process. So I don't know that I agree with that. I'm sure there's some limiting factors where it is a compromise, but it can work.
Again, that would be fun to set up as part of that same above below.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
have
mean,
to
the
do
whole
that.
thing about him saying just in general of not imaging correctly, I've told you guys before that this speaker images are actually would be this speaker images with this speaker so well you can't tell the speaker's on or off. Like, that's vertical imaging behind the head, and it's making stereo imaging. It's making a speaker here that's not here.
You can test this if you do. Just take your front left channel and play it with the front top left, and you can just playing on delays. You can move.
Yes.
Like if I play Adele's Hello, I can move her position just by playing with delays and SPLs.
Yeah.
You can do that with the DTS app on Xbox or PlayStation. We did that at Jonathan. You remember when we did that?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly at Chris's house. This is like, the more I think about this, the more wrong this is. You're telling me I can't tell when a plane's flying overhead and moves across the sky? I can absolutely hear where that plane's going across the sky. Like, we can hear vertically. We can hear sounds moving across our heads from bed layer to height to behind. Like, we can image that.
It might be talking about your resolution, the amount you can actually resolve as far as difference of separation or things like that. So, I mean,
before we say he's wrong, I feel like there's part of this what Pose said that is not being.
We may not know the context. Agreed.
Pose is usually pretty objective, so I'm sure Pose will hear about it and he'll call me and tell me, which I would like him to do. So Matt, if this gets back to you, please inform me.
MW says Pose suggested reflecting a center channel to the listener over stereo center. What does that mean?
Well, the reflected image that Driver brought up before, where you're firing a ceiling speaker off the screen and it bouncing back, he's suggesting that over a top and bottom supported center.
I haven't heard the reflected center, but I know I've heard the above and below center, and I liked it just fine. Twice, 2 different rooms, 2 different nice rooms.
I need to do this. All right, I'm gonna talk to Jeffrey about this at ISE and see if we can do this, because I think this would be pretty cool for people to experience. Okay, looking for the questions. Daniel P asks, in your personal opinion, at what point would you recommend upgrading to a dedicated 20 amp circuit? I'm looking into doing so due to my amp's RMS rating. I would go 240 regardless for your amps.
Well, your amps aren't necessarily going to be able to handle 240. Most of them can't.
I was thinking the same thing, Bob.
A lot of amps can.
No, most commercial amps cannot.
True.
Most power supplies now are auto switching.
Only on the really expensive stuff.
Yeah.
No, I'm just talking about electronics in general. Like virtually every computer power supply is auto switching.
I would pay very close attention to what you have in your manual.
You're going to get a puff of smoke on most amps.
But my point is if you can, because it doesn't specify what amps they are. Like if you could do the 240 amps for JTR as an example, or for Ascendo's amps and stuff, it's just a cumulatively better result than if you use 120.
But you won't need that for most of the stuff, because even a lot of those big things only have like a 600 watt.
It's not just about power; it's about heat output and how everything happens electronically with how electricity works. It is just a better.
If you double the voltage, you'll have a lot less current draw, so they will not be as hot.
It is a more efficient process if you can to run on 240. That's why I said that. So
you got to change power cords, you got to change outlets, you got to change a bunch of other stuff, and don't plug anything else into the circuit.
If your equipment doesn't support it, don't do it. That would be bad. I don't want to be responsible for a bunch of magic blue smoke. But when do you guys think he would need 20 amps?
Well, I mean, if you're trying to run everything off of one dedicated 15 amp circuit, you're really going to get a sustained, 11 amps, 12 amps or something like that. Because you really don't get you really shouldn't be running a 15 amp circuit, 15 amp capability. You got to look at what's going to be on there. So if you have a projector on that circuit, or if you have a TV on that circuit, that's going to be a couple hundred watts. If you've got, look at the power draw of your amps, but instantaneous is different than RMS, and you're not going to be sitting there putting out continuous power for almost every bit of content. You don't use, a 2000 watt amplifier is not putting out 2000 watts of power most of the time.
Putting out like watt or two most of the time.
Yes, it's putting out a watt or two most of the time. So transients don't generally trip breakers. Transients don't cause big thermal issues in wiring. Sustained power does. So it's really going to depend upon the load on your room and how much actual current drawing equipment you have. If you're tripping breakers, then yes, absolutely start looking for it. And if you've got a crazy system, there's no reason, or if you're rebuilding a room, that's a great time to add more circuits. But just wanting to add one for the sake of wanting to add one is probably not going to make a difference unless you.
But if he's putting them in,
but if you're putting them in, yeah, put a bunch in.
I have a little different take than both these guys. I think I would say if you're not tripping the breaker at 15 amp, you're probably okay.
I just said that.
You just said install a bunch of them. If you're
I said if you're installing more circuits, put more in. But if you're not tripping the breaker with what you've got in your room, don't.
What Bob is saying is if he's installing new circuits, you might as well do 20 amps. Like it's
agreed.
Or put a menial increase in cost and just do it. My point is if you can do 240 and you have equipment that can support it, it is better. So
right.
If you don't need it though, and you already have a 15 amp, and you're not tripping breakers, you're not gaining anything. I mean, your peak output is really, it only becomes a problem if you heat up the breaker to the point or you cause a rush and it causes it to trip. I mean,
and we've talked about this before too. The breaker can pass quite a bit more than rated power for short periods of time. And you're pulling these dynamic peaks and your amp's basically just idling almost all the time. Like think about the sensitivity that we're talking about. A speaker sensitivity is usually in the 90s. Besides your idle load on the amplifier, a lot of times your speakers aren't even using 1 watt to play up to the mid 90s.
But it does also depend on,
and subs the same way. I mean, a lot of if you just have the audio on kind of casually in the room and you're not pushing it to reference, you're using if I watch and granted the averaging is slow, but if I watch my watt meter when I'm listening to music down here, for the most part, it doesn't even move. There's no, for dynamic bass boost at normal volumes, it doesn't even change. It's just the idle power draw.
Yeah.
If you go to reference, you'll start seeing peaks, heavy peaks.
It can become more complicated when you start dealing with the resistance of whatever the driver's needing and how much current that's pulling from whatever, because it's not just a flat, this is your resistance for the woofer, driver, or speaker, or tweeter. So it can vary depending on what actually the frequency is from what the woofer or whatever you're asking the amplifier to do. But
you can also trip a lot of stuff like that if you throw a whole bunch on and you turn them all on at the same time.
Current in rush.
Try to use big current in rush on 12-volt triggers.
Ask Bob how he knows.
I don't use 12-volt triggers because
I did. It would happen to me
fried
too.
Something.
So you had to stage them.
I had something get fried through 12 volts.
But Jonathan's absolutely right. You can pull more from a 15 amp breaker than just 15 amps instantaneously. You can't sustain it, but you can absolutely pull it
because they're heat based. And if you're not pulling it for very long, you're not generating significant heat to throw the breaker for sure. Right. I mean, I've seen on ABS forums some of the engineers talking about you can pull 6 times the rated current just in brief transients, like base peaks. So if you got supposedly 1,500 watts ish that you can get out of 15 amp continuous ish, 6 times that you can pull in transient peaks for base bursts. They've tested this and found that to be the case for momentary, just a explosion or something.
If that's
not continuing, like a hit.
Well, here's more context into Daniel. He says he's doing short peaks at 1,000 watts. No, you're fine.
It's not gonna. It won't make any difference whatsoever.
You're fine.
The big thing is just if you have existing.
So the case of smart plug is going to have probably a slow
filter. Yeah, but even still at that point,
like, he might see 1,000 watts and it might have been 2,000 or something at that point, and just
But
doesn't
even
have the
still,
sampling.
that short pulse is probably not going to cause any issues.
even if it doesn't
Agreed.
have the resolution, if that's all he's seeing,
And if
and
he's not
not
throwing
even
breakers, yeah,
and he's not
Right.
tripping the smart plug, he's probably fine.
yeah, and a lot of times those smart plugs are only rated. I don't know about that case, but a lot of times they're only rated for 12 amps,
12 amps. Yeah. A lot of
instead
that
of
stuff
15. So if you're not tripping a little smart plug, you're definitely not in trouble.
the biggest thing always though is don't put a bigger breaker in.
Just keep turning it up until it breaks, and then you know your limit.
When you catch fire, you know you need a bigger circuit.
Circuit breakers in your walls are designed to protect your wiring in the wall, not to protect your equipment. A bigger circuit breaker is never the right solution on existing wiring.
Yeah, that's fair.
Any other questions? We've reached the end.
No, but there's a lot of talk on the circuit stuff, as you might imagine. I mean, you'll find all over the gamut on that. Some of the guys on AVS Forum are like, I ran 6 20 amp circuits, one for every amp, and like stuff like that. There's people, they're diehard.
I ran 5, I think, in this room right now.
I have 19.
All my gear is running off 2 20 amp circuits, and maybe one time I've thrown a breaker in this room. One time
but I did that because we ran a sub panel, and I just wired everything so that it could be on its own individual.
I didn't have enough space on my sub panel to put everything on it because my wood shop's on the sub panel also, and that's got it's got 5 120 circuits and 7 240s.
So this particular what Ray's talking about, that sine sweep in that movie, that would be candidate to trip a breaker. Absolutely. Because that's continuous.
Or what's the
Overlord?
The rumble launching thing in Interstellar, isn't that
that's like 30 seconds long or something. Yes.
Yep.
The rocket launch?
The rocket launch.
Overlord might do it.
I'll find out. See if you lose any more sub amp drivers while I'm over there.
Maybe. We'll find out. Oh, anything else?
You guys want to talk about the crawl, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can talk about the crawl. So, as of right now, I won't say who the theaters are yet.
I think you can probably, right? Aren't they already said yes?
Okay, then I can, or you can.
You could say tentative. All right. Yeah, I mean, we can just say tentatively right now on schedule. It's Ryan, me, Sheldon, Doug. No, Doug's not.
No,
Ryan,
Doug.
The other Ryan, Chirpy, Tim, which is Stitch 1, and then who's the 6th? I'm missing.
It's
Bob. You're not doing it, or you are doing it?
It's
unsure at this time.
I left Bob as tentative.
I'm tentative because if I start selling stuff, I might not have enough to do something.
That's why I left him tentative. So as of right now, it's Jonathan, Sheldon, Ryan, not me, Ryan Kramer, Tim, Grant, and myself.
Jedi Master Grant on the forums.
There's 6. And right now, the crawl is scheduled for the weekend of April 18th. Is
that the weekend after Expona?
I think so.
11th through the 13th in Expona.
Yes, it is the weekend after Expona. So it's the weekend of the 18th. It's going to be 2 days of crawls. We can potentially do something else for maybe an experience or something. Maybe I can pull in. We can do that center channel thing then. I'm probably going to want to do that before then. But we could do something.
We took over a movie theater in the 2017 crawl and had a lot of fun with that. Everyone just met on a Friday night to go to whatever the show was. Could do something like that too.
Could do that, or I could rent a room at the Kansas City Convention Center and do a comparison or something one day. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. But right now it's April 18th. We'll make an AVS forum thread about it. And we're doing 6 theaters currently. Bob evidently is tentative. And my idea was to have another day where other people could open their doors. If people wanted to come in early, they could go see them. But the 6 would be the main ones that we could schedule everybody through. So how many did you guys have last time you did this?
8 or 9. How
many people came?
Not too many. We had like 55 people. We divided up into 4 or 5 groups. I haven't looked at that thread in a long time. It's 2017 was the last one we did. But we had a lot of people from out of state, like all over the United States, like came in. It was a lot of
Mhm.
fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah. I think it'll be a lot of fun, but we got a date. We've talked about this for a long time. Oh, we need to do a crawl. Oh, we need to do this. Oh, we need to do this. And Jonathan and I finally said, you know what?
Just do
It's
it.
time. So April 18th, that weekend, 18th and the 19th, I think are going to be the days for the crawl. Or are we going to do the 18th or the 19th and the 20th?
It'd be Saturday, Sunday, probably, wouldn't it?
Probably. So 19th and the 20th, and then we may do something on the 18th.
Yeah, and it's totally free. So there's no cost involved at all.
I wanted to charge people $500 to attend. No, it's
We need a
totally
VIP
free.
track.
Totally free. I mean, travel and your stay, obviously, but we're not charging people to come have fun. This is a enjoy yourselves,
Justin
get to
just
know
said
everybody.
that's Easter weekend. Are we that
That dumb?
out of the loop? Come on now.
It's not on my calendar.
Easter weekend 2025.
Am I
I
dumb?
did see it's Expona weekend, which might put a damper on it too.
No,
that's the weekend
Expona's the
before.
week
We just checked
before.
that.
April 20th, 2025.
Fudge!
That's probably not a good choice.
That's not
then.
a good weekend. How did that get by everybody that's
I
doing
don't know.
the thing?
Everybody signed off on it. All 6 of us.
Or maybe everyone said we're not going anywhere Easter weekend, so it's a great time to do it.
Because you said the 18th and it didn't click with anybody. But really, yeah, we're gonna have to move that.
Yeah, we'll move it. Maybe the 25th. I got to find out if that works. It'll either probably be the first week or the last week. Okay.
I think the first week in April, I have already am occupied.
Yeah, the
So
first
we're
week
looking-
I'm at Azione. No, HTSA.
Ay. Thanks, Surgeon Ed. We're excited to tell you tonight, and then already moved it. Don't book your flights yet.
Failure. Failure.
I like that
Well,
idea.
it's coming at
Just add
some
an Easter egg
point.
in it.
We
Just
do need to
turning
get
it.
it. We do need to get it ironed out as far as a date, because if people want to fly in for it, get a hotel and all that stuff, it's much cheaper in advance.
Yeah.
That's how we had so many out of staters last time we did it, like 4 months out.
All right, I asked everybody.
Bruce says we can do it Easter weekend. Just throw in an egg hunt and it'll be all good.
Whoops. I did not mean to ask.
Oh, he's already arranging it here.
Yeah, I got it. So we'll see. Anyway, so the next movie for next week, Overlord. Do we have any other homework? Jonathan, are you going to get your subs done?
Yeah, I mean, they should be done by next week.
Okay.
They're really almost done now. Like, I just got to put in the driver terminals. I
Now,
was trying to
Jonathan,
get pictures. I've been messing with my phone the whole time trying to get my Q file to work so I can get the pictures downloaded from my phone onto my app to give you
So-
some preview shots, but I never got to go.
as a side question, you'd mentioned that the existing drivers, the version 1 of them don't fit, or the version 2s don't fit in the version 1 enclosures. Was that because of size of the cutout, or was that screw hole location?
They're a little larger diameter and the basket's a little wider. So the baskets don't fit in the cutout for the V1 boxes.
So now technically you could take your V1s and put them in your V2 boxes if you want to compare them.
While I was building boxes, I built a 4 cubic foot, 18-inch box just to use to test. So
Right.
I haven't had a chance with my family being here to do that, but that's on the chopping block to do just a compression sweep testing with both of them and DATS testing and all that.
Anything else? I don't have anything. I'm excited to watch Overlord again. I haven't seen that in a while. Okay. Well, my homework is going to be to get the crawl figured out. What are you laughing about?
I'm just laughing about the fact we thought we had it. We were all like,
Oh, yeah.
"That's it."
MW says, Ryan, next week, can you talk more about workarounds for processor numbing subs, please? What does that mean? MW, I don't know what numbing means.
There's a lot of typos in tonight's chats.
What does that mean? But I don't have anything else. So if MW doesn't respond, he can text me or
I
email
think
me.
maybe
He's
he
got my
means
contact.
the stuff about zone 2 workarounds and things like that for
Oh.
would be my guess.
I mean, that's just assigning channels to different zones. That's
But as far as that, for maybe different layouts for EQ systems that aren't able to handle capabilities, or maybe more subs than
the easier way to do that is mini DSPs and stuff.
Yeah.
Restricting. Oh, the audio EQ stuff. Yeah, we can maybe talk about that a little bit more next week. There's some. I'll follow up with Matt from Storm. Make sure I've got all the knowledge about what's going on and why and how and ways to work around it. It's mainly issues with infrasonics. I mean, for your main subs and for most content, it's not a problem. And I can tell you it's not a problem because I can look at a spectrograph for virtually all content and there's not much down there. It's a lot of stuff that's down there is like harmonic frequencies and things from things that are higher up, but sometimes it comes up. Because Overlord, it will absolutely be down there. So you guys will get to experience that. But
a lot of those those audio engineers purposefully cut that stuff out anyway, so it's not in a lot of tracks.
Yeah.
Ryan, bring your hand on screens just quickly. Didn't do it that time. I've noticed a couple times tonight when you bring your hand on screen, like your skin is like bright red. I don't know if it's like some sort of weird camera thing that's happening.
It may be my camera's exposure or something. Maybe it's picking up and I'm blushing and I'm getting excited and you're just seeing everything get red. It's possible. I've noticed that I've gotten red, but I think that's just blood flow and getting excited. Okay, we'll watch Overlord. Bob, let me know when you want to watch. I've got a pretty open week, I think, right now with meetings. So
if my kids are back in school next week, four snow days this week.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday.
Yeah.
Good if you can get it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I got. If you guys don't have anything. No. Ryan, isn't that the lawnmower? What? I don't even understand half these comments as they come in. MW, just email me. I don't get it.
He's talking about the Lawnmower Man movie, which was actually a great movie. It was a lot.
I haven't seen that.
You've never seen the Lawnmower Man?
I haven't either.
We got to watch the Lawnmower Man.
All right. Well, if you come over to watch Overlord,
that's an old sci-fi movie.
Come over to watch Overlord. Maybe we'll do a Lawnmower Man. Good Lord, what is? That's just what my wife needs to see on a Kaleidoscape purchase. Lawnmower Man. Riding his lawnmower to clean up crime.
No, you'll get some really great like 90s super pixelated CGI in that movie.
Herc Driver says, I'm going to watch Overlord on my iPad. Get down to 60 hertz. It'll be rocking. I mean, just hold it up to your ear the whole time. Okay, Overlord. I'm excited. So next Friday? We good with Friday? Where's today? What's today's date? Today's the 11th.
11th.
Can you guys do Friday?
I should be able to do Friday, I think, next week.
I can do Friday. As of right now.
I don't see anything on there.
Okay, let's do Friday. Plan on Friday. Did Saturday. Competing with football. I'm going to go finish. Evidently, this is turning into a good game. The Steelers versus the Ravens.
All right, let's get off here. You said you're going to end it like 10 times.
I know, and things keep coming up, and I get distracted and whatever. But guys, see you guys next Friday. We'll fix the crawl. I got to get out of here before MW confuses me again. Watch Overlord, and then we'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Stay safe.
Night.
See you next Friday.